I didn't pick the cabin for the view or the vintage enamel mugs the listing bragged about. I picked it because on the map, it was the last dot before the road thinned into a line and then into nothing. My name is Nora. I manage a grocery store in a town where the only drama is when the milk truck is late. I thought a week in the woods would loosen the knot that had been living at the base of my skull since July. My boyfriend, Eli, said yes before I finished the sentence. He lives for fireplaces and places with names like the perfect autumn hideaway. The gravel drive unspooled through trees that flickered orange and rust. Damp air breathing cold through the cracked window. The cabin appeared the way animals appear when you've been staring too long into brush, all at once, inevitable. It was modest, single story, pitched roof dark with rain, a porch strung with a few dead fairy lights. Wet leaves slicked under our boots as we carried in our bags. The key was under a turtle-shaped rock, just like the host had said. The door opened with a stick and a sigh. It smelled like cedar and something older, stale smoke maybe, or the faint sourness of cloth that's been put away before it's fully dry. The living room was one room pretending to be three, a couch and a coffee table facing a stone hearth, a little round dining table near a window, and a kitchen corner with teal cabinets and a crooked spice rack. Rugs were layered like someone kept losing patience with the cold. The bedroom was down a narrow hallway, a simple bed covered with a quilt whose stitching made constellations. Eli lit kindling like he'd been born with a box of matches in his hand. "Hear that?" he asked when the fire caught. The sound was soft, hiss, crack, a purr of flame. I realized he meant the quiet, the way it had weight, the way it pressed against your ears until your own breath sounded too loud. I smiled like I meant it. We ate soup from a pot and drank cheap red wine. Rain tapped the windows. The trees answered with wet hands. The first night in a strange bed is always a negotiation. You make promises to the dark and it takes what it wants anyway. Around 2, I woke to the sound of a door moving. Not a slam, no sudden violence, just the patient talk of old wood and old hinges. A door opening. And then the softest footsteps, not the heel-first stride of someone awake and decisive, but that careful middle-of-the-night shuffle where you place each foot like it might wake someone if you aren't gentle. "Eli," I whispered. His breathing changed. "Do you hear that?" He didn't sit up, but his hand found mine under the quilt and clenched. The footsteps paused as if whoever made them was listening too, and then continued coming from the hallway. The bedroom door was closed. I felt the rush of air as it moved behind it, pressure changing, temperature slipping. The footsteps reached the door and stopped. I counted because counting is a way to build a wall with numbers. 8, 9, 10, nothing. Then a slow exhale on the other side of the wood, not from lungs exactly, but the sound old houses make when they remember something. We did not turn on the light. I wasn't sure why. The dark felt like an animal you didn't want to startle. In the morning, everything seemed smaller, less serious, the way places do when the light shows you their edges. Eli made coffee in a French press that left grounds in our teeth. He laughed when I told him about the door. "It's a cabin," he said, but he said it quietly like the walls could be offended. He kissed my forehead. His skin felt colder than mine. We walked the trail behind the cabin until it gave up and fell into a creek, then followed the water until our socks sucked. The trees smelled like wet coins. We found a clearing where chestnuts lay like scattered moons, their spiky husks splitting with pale insides. Eli hummed without realizing it. He has this secret catalog of old songs. He never remembers the words, just the bones of a melody. I asked him what it was. He shrugged. "Something my dad played," he said, but it came out unsure, like he was reading from a script with half the lines missing. The host texted in the afternoon to check in. "How's everything?" I typed back, "Fine, great, thank you," because that's what you do. When I mentioned the door, added a laughing emoji to keep it light, she wrote, "Old houses like to talk. Let me know if you need anything." Her name on the app was Miriam. Her profile picture was a lake with a person too far away to matter. The second night it happened again. Same hour, same hush of wood, same small footsteps. I had wedged a folded towel into the bottom corner of the bedroom door, like that would matter to something not particularly interested in gaps. The steps reached our door and stopped. I could hear the fire settling in the other room, a clink as soot let go and fell. The mattress dipped beside me as Eli rolled onto his back. "It's wind," he said, but the word wind sounded ridiculous inside that sound. After a long moment, something touched the doorknob on the other side. A metal scrape, tentative, a breath. The knob turned a fraction, not enough to catch, and then released. When the footsteps retreated, they were slower, like whoever it was had remembered something they didn't want to. I thought about the carbon monoxide alarm screwed high and yellowed in the hallway. It had a dead light. I thought about how fear does arithmetic with whatever you give it. On the third day, the rain gave us mercy. We drove into town because I insisted on buying fresh batteries, and because I wanted to look at other faces. The town was one street with a diner and a Bible resale store and a laundromat, where 2 of the machines were out of order and the other 4 were probably lying. We ate pie that tasted like cinnamon and evaporated milk and years of aluminum pans. When Eli went to the restroom, he paused by the bulletin board with the index cards and the spidery handwriting. Firewood. Cash only, call after 6, and stared too long at one that said free dog. No kids. His fingers hovered like he was reading Braille. "You good?" I asked when he came back. He smiled with just his mouth. "Headache," he said. "It's..." He put a hand to his temple and winced at a new word he didn't finish. That night, his skin had a glassy coolness, the kind you feel in a room that hasn't been opened in months. We got back close to dusk and found a pie left on the porch that we hadn't ordered. No note, just a foil pan cooling in the cold. The crust had that handmade ugliness that tells you it's honest. We carried it inside on the polite off chance it was harmless. There was something I hadn't noticed before, or maybe it had decided to be noticed. In the living room, on the wall over the small bookcase that held a stack of Reader's Digest condensed novels and a deck of cards with 3 missing, there was a framed photograph. The glass had fogged slightly at the edges, a cataract under the frame. It showed a lake I didn't recognize and 4 people at the jagged edge of a dock. 3 were easy. 2 kids running toward the camera. A woman in sunglasses laughing, her hair pulled into a messy knot like it was always a second away from falling. The 4th was a man with his arm around the woman, shoulders broad in a gray sweater, a smile that happened more in his eyes than his mouth. I looked, then looked again. The man in the photo and Eli could have been brothers. No twins. Same slope to the nose. Same angle of eyes, the same tiny scar above the left eyebrow that I had kissed without thinking a dozen times. My stomach went cold in an entirely new way, a cold that started in my throat and moved inward. "Eli," I said. He was standing too close to the picture, breath clouding the glass. "When was this taken?" he asked, but he wasn't asking me. He raised his hand and touched the frame like it might burn him if he pressed too hard. His finger left a clean crescent in the fog. "I know this sweater." "You don't have that sweater," I said. "You hate anything with wool." He tilted his head like listening to something from under the floor. "I'm not saying I have it," he said, irritation a sudden animal in his voice. "I'm saying..." He stopped, swallowed, tried a smile that bared his teeth. "I'm saying it looks like mine." We texted Miriam. "It felt like something you'd be cruel not to do." I wrote, "Hey, weird question. There's a family photo above the bookcase. Who are they?" She answered with a dot typing that went on long enough to grow a season and then a new message. "I'm 10 minutes away. I'll stop by if that's okay." 10 minutes is a small age when you're waiting. I tidied nothing and then everything. Straightened cushions, stacked firewood, wiped the coffee rings off the table with the sleeve of my sweater. Eli stood in front of the photograph like a guard. When the knock came, it made the windows tremble like glass has breath. I opened the door. The woman on the porch was the woman in the photograph, plus years and minus sunglasses. Her hair was shorter now, and there were places on her face where grief had slept and pressed lines into the skin. She smelled like rain and the inside of a car. "Hi," she said, and her smile had too much bravery in it. "I'm Miriam. Sorry to drop in late. You texted about the photo and I thought I should see for myself. I brought her in." When she saw the picture, she stopped smiling, but not in the way you stop smiling when you remember you left the stove on. Her teeth found her bottom lip. "That's impossible," she said softly, and then louder so the word could try to become a fact. "That's impossible." Eli stepped back like she had reached out and touched him. His face seemed to change even though it didn't change. "Do we?" he started, then let the sentence dissolve. Miriam didn't look at him directly. She stared at the photograph, then at the wall around it, as if the wood might confess something. "That's my husband," she said, the words upholstered in the threadbare fabric of having been said too many times. She pointed. Not quite at Eli, but at the man in the frame. "Mark, he—" A swallow. A nod as if agreeing with an invisible person. "He died 5 years ago. In the back bedroom." The word bedroom landed with specific gravity. I felt every joint in my fingers like they were beads on a string. "How?" I asked. Because sometimes the asking is an act of kindness, because leaving the question unspoken felt like a worse cruelty. She kept her eyes on the picture. "He came up here after he lost his job. Said he needed a week to think. He fell asleep with the space heater on and..." She stopped again, found a plank of voice beneath the water. The coroner wrote complications from smoke inhalation. He said the heater hadn't burned anything, not really, it just drank the air and left nothing for the room. The silence that followed had the texture of wool on wet skin. Eli moved finally, and when he did, the room seemed to notice. He stepped closer to Miriam like something pulled him. A tide or a wire. "I'm sorry," he said. The words were simple, but something in the way he said them made every hair on my arm stand up. Soft, familiar, private. He said them like he knew exactly how her lips had shaped the name Mark in the kitchen the morning the pie burned. Miriam closed her eyes as if to listen better. When she opened them, they were wet and fierce. "What's your name?" she asked him. He hesitated. His mouth made an E without sound. He looked to me like he'd forgotten what we used to call him. The pause stretched, thinned, broke. "Eli," he said, and then softer, as if testing a taste he used to love. "Mark." The house took a breath. The bedroom door down the hall eased itself open with the careful manners of a person late to a funeral. Cold air came through like a hand under a shirt. The carbon monoxide alarm, a useless yellowed coin, clicked. Not the full-throated warble of warning, but a small sound like something metal remembering a life. I said his name. Eli, not Mark, and he flinched like a fish at the surface. "I'm here," he said to both of us, and also to neither. He lifted his hand, palm toward Miriam, and for a moment it hovered between them, the space where you would put a goodbye that knows it has already happened. Miriam took a step back. She wasn't frightened exactly. She had the face of a person whose mouth has learned how to carry a certain weight, so it won't fall out and shatter. "I should go," she said quietly. "I shouldn't have come." She took the photograph off the wall with a practiced motion as if she'd done it a dozen times, then put it back because leaving it felt like a worse betrayal than anything we were about to do. At the door, she turned. "He used to walk at night," she said, not looking at Eli. "He couldn't sleep if he felt like my breathing depended on his. He would check the doors. He thought if he kept all the hinges talking, nothing could sneak in." She smiled without joy. It snuck in anyway. When she left, the house exhaled a tired draft and the pie on the counter had collapsed a little in the middle like a chest. We didn't sleep. We lay on the bed like people rehearsing for being found. The footsteps started earlier, as if the routine had been moved up. This time I turned on the lamp when they reached the door. The bulb hummed, the room went the wrong kind of bright. The knob tilted, paused, and then the door swung open on a cold that smelled faintly of hot metal and wool. The hallway was empty except for the shape empty makes when it's been used too many times. Eli sat up like he was being pulled up by threads. "I have to check the doors," he said, apologetic, automatic. He swung his legs over the side of the bed. His feet met the rug. He walked down the hall with steps that didn't belong to him. "Eli." I said it hard. He stopped, just a fraction too late, like there was momentum to undo. He turned his head halfway like someone else had the other half. His eyes were the right eyes. They were also not. "Come back," I said. He ran his hand along the hallway wall, fingers catching on a nail head, thumb grazing the dent where a doorknob had kissed too hard. He touched the alarm, the useless yellow light, and then kept walking. The living room was gray with moon. He checked the front door, leaned into it with his shoulder like a man used to stubborn frames. He went to the kitchen and put his palm on the back door, then the window over the sink, then the little square window above the stove that didn't open at all. He stood in front of the cold fireplace until the phantom heat of old fires warmed our faces without warming the room. When he turned back, he wasn't breathing hard, but he was breathing like a person who had remembered something they weren't supposed to. He looked at me the way people look at photographs of themselves taken at parties they don't remember attending. He opened his mouth and the room tilted slightly to make room for whatever he would say. "It's quieter," he murmured, and it was the voice Miriam had fed her children with when she didn't want to wake their father. He blinked, then shook his head hard enough to clear a snow globe. "Nora." My name came out rough, a rope pulled hand over hand. "I'm here." I went to him and held his arms and felt cold and heat braided in muscle. "We should go," I said, but the word go had nowhere to go. It was 2 in the morning in a place where the map is more ambition than reality. The weather had begun to spit snow, the first dry flakes scratching the window glass. We lay back down fully clothed. The door stayed open. The cold stitched itself along the floorboards, climbed the bedposts, folded itself into the quilt. From the hallway came the sound of footsteps that were not ours, moving away now, softer, satisfied, as if the house had checked its own locks and found us adequately contained. I dreamed that the space heater from the listing's amenities stood at the foot of the bed like a skinny animal with a chrome smile. In the dream it whispered, and the whisper was exactly the sound of oxygen leaving a room. When I woke, I wasn't sure I had. The light was the color of tin. Eli lay with his eyes open, unblinking. "We're leaving," I said. He nodded, a small, unconvincing motion. We packed with the efficiency of people who have decided they want to carry as little as possible from one life into another. Outside, the trees had put on a sugar of frost. The car door protested. I went back in for my scarf. I'd left it hanging on the rack by the front door, and when I turned, I saw Eli standing in front of the photograph again, his hand on the frame. The glass was warm under his palm. His reflection wasn't his. It wasn't not his. It was the way water looks like the sky until you throw a rock. "Eli," I said, softer than before, because sometimes the only weapon is softness. He turned. For a moment, his face was his. Then, in a ripple, it wasn't, not a full change. No cinematic slide of features, just the smallest wrong emphasis. Someone else putting their weight on the words from inside. "I'll make sure the doors are locked," he said. "We're going," I said again. He smiled, and the smile had memory in it that didn't belong to us. "I know," he said. "We always say that." I write this now from our apartment where the hallway is short and the doors are new. The first night back, I slept with the lamp on like a child or a saint. The second night, the lamp stayed on without my help. The third night, I heard the sound of a door moving. Not a slam, no sudden violence, just the patient talk of hinges that remember. Last night at 2:13 a.m., Eli stood and walked the perimeter of our place. He touched the front door, the bathroom window, the sliding glass to the balcony that sticks every time like it has a secret. He didn't turn on any lights. When he finished, he stood at the foot of our bed and glanced toward the hallway, listening to breath that was not mine. He looked at me with his right face and the other one layered underneath like an old photograph glued to a newer page. "Quieter," he whispered. I did not ask him who he was telling. I booked the house because it was cheap, because it looked like a photograph taken with someone else's memory. I travel alone by choice, no one to wait on, no one to reassure. I teach high school English, and the Halloween weekend sits like a hinge in the semester. The kids are sugar drunk. The staff room smells like plastic masks and burnt coffee, and I usually spend it pretending I am the sort of person who does spontaneous things. The listing promised Victorian charm with modern convenience, in which I translated as old bones and new outlets. It had 3 rooms, a bay window with heavy drapes, an iron bed with a quilt the color of dried blood, and a sitting room with a mantel crowded by glass birds. The photos showed a tall mirror in a carved walnut frame, its surface slightly dark, as if it had kept some nights for itself. The host's messages were friendly and full of exclamation points. Her name was Lila. The self-check-in directions were a ritual, a lockbox behind the planter, a key that liked to stick, a reminder that room 3 was at the top of the stairs. Second door on the right with the mirror. She added a winking emoji as if the mirror were a local mascot. The house sat on a narrow street where the trees made a vault of yellow leaves. The air had the metallic taste that comes before snow. In the foyer, the floorboards spoke in a low tongue. The wallpaper lifted at the seams like stitches loosening. My suitcase wheels stuttered on the runner as I pulled it toward the stairs. The smell hit me halfway up. Old wood, furniture polish, and that faint, sour breath of radiators that have been silent too long. Room 3 was exactly its picture. A small desk under the window, a spindle chair, a bed that had opinions about how someone should lie. The mirror stood opposite the bed, full length, woodwork carved with vines and little faces that might have been leaves or might have been watching. The glass wasn't flat. It had that slight undulation old mirrors have, so that straight lines bend a little, and the world looks like it has been disturbed by the thought of something passing through. I set my bag on the stand and it sighed like paper. I flicked the overhead light and it hummed to life. Outside, a wind came up and translated the trees. I crossed to the mirror and took a breath I didn't need. The glass was cool and smelled of nothing and of metal. My reflection looked tired in the way I was tired. My hair pinned back in a hurry, my mouth set for bad traffic. I lifted my hand and my reflection lifted hers, but there was a beat between, like an echo. Not long, less than a second, but long enough to be noticed. I stood there longer than makes sense, testing. Raise the left hand, delay, match. Tilt the head, delay, match, blink. I never notice my blinking until I'm watching for it. In the mirror, I blinked after I did, a fraction behind, as if I were the one copied and not the one doing the copying. I smiled. Not because I felt like it, but because that's what you do when a camera points at you or a stranger passes you in the hall. My reflection smiled after me exactly what I had just done, slightly late. I laughed out loud at myself. Jet lag without the jet. I unpacked the small comforts, my book, my tea, the socks with the stitched clouds. I texted Lila, here and settled. Mirror is very dramatic. She sent back 3 exclamation points and a heart. By late, the house had become a cathedral of small noises. Somewhere, a pipe knocked like a knuckle on wood. The wind learned the name of every window. I made tea with water from a kettle that whistled shyly. The first sip burned my tongue, and the taste of scorched mint edged everything. I brushed my teeth, changed into a t-shirt, and turned out the lamp. The mirror held the room's little glow like a lake catching the last of the sun. When I lay down, I could see the mirror from the pillow. It showed me as a dark shape in the bed. Light from a passing car ran along the ceiling and then was gone, leaving a chemical afterimage behind my eyes. My breath fogged the cold in front of my face. For a while, I listened to the house breathe and thought of nothing. I woke at 2:11 a.m., a time my body knows even if the clock doesn't. The radiator exhaled a thread of heat that smelled like dust and coins. My mouth tasted like sleep left too long in air. The mirror was a narrow black river across from me. More night than glass. I sat up on my elbows in my reflection, 2 pale smudges where eyes should be. Sat up a heartbeat after. My heart did that small jump animals do when the shadow moves the wrong way. I told myself old glass. I told myself latency in things in me. I got out of bed and the rug was cold enough to sting. I walked closer. The wooden floorboards greeted me with small complaints. At arm's length, my face resolved, and there I was. Hair mussed, sleep at the corners of my eyes, the seam of the pillow pressed into my cheek. I lifted my hand and watched it lag behind. I touched my neck and watched my reflected hand arrive after, as if the gesture had to travel farther on the other side. There is a long, quiet feeling that sometimes arrives in old houses, like a bird landing on your shoulder. It feels like being watched by something not irritated by your presence, not curious, not kind, just there first. The feeling wrapped around me. It's fine, I said in a voice made for children and pets. It's fine. My reflected mouth formed the words a tick later, and I could not hear it. But I knew that if the mirror had a voice, it would be a small ripple after mine. Back in bed, I pulled the quilt up to my chin. When I turned my face toward the window, the mirror still held a thin image of me turned toward it, as if it had chosen a different moment to keep. I watched that residual me for too long, until sleep found me through the tiredness. In the light, fear became silly, and I wore it like a hat for a while, and then put it down. I walked to the bakery 2 blocks away for a croissant that flaked into my coat, and coffee in a paper cup with a brown sleeve. On the way back, I passed children in costumes, even though it was morning. Even though Halloween was still a few hours of work away. Ragged superheroes whose capes were scarves. A princess whose crown had chosen the back of her head over the top. A plastic skeleton leaned against a stoop, grinning into the air like it knew something that would be obvious later. In the foyer, a woman in a cardigan that had been washed too many times was arranging small white pumpkins on a table. She looked up when the door shut. "You must be room 3, she said. She had a friendly face built to survive other people's stories. "I'm Lila." We made small talk that filled the air the way steam fogs a bathroom mirror. She asked if I needed extra towels, if everything was to my liking. I told her the house was beautiful in the way that makes you want to whisper. When I mentioned the mirror, she smiled with a curve that wasn't quite a joke. We inherited that monstrosity. Came with the house. People love it for photos. It makes everyone look like they're in a daguerreotype. She glanced past me to the staircase as if the mirror might have followed me down. They say old glass keeps a little of everyone who stands in front of it, like fingerprints. I laughed and said, "That's comforting." And we laughed together, the brittle laugh of strangers who do not want to be the first to mean something. That night, the mirror waited. I could feel it from the desk where I wrote a few perfunctory notes in my journal. Lines like "find bakery again" and "paper at 10 a.m. Monday." Just pressure. Like a thumb, like the feeling before a nosebleed. At 1:57, the house grew quiet in a new way. The kind that happens when the world braces. The radiator went still. Even the wind stopped dragging its sleeve against the siding. When I looked up, I was not looking at myself yet. I was looking at the version the mirror had kept from earlier. A pale ghost bent over a notebook. Then, like a film catching up with the projector, my reflection slid into place. I stood. She stood. I took a step and she took hers. I raised my hand and watched the beat between. Then she smiled. I hadn't. My mouth was a straight, startled line. In the glass, mine turned up slow, deliberate, as if it were teaching me the shape. The skin at the corners of my eyes crinkled. A small dimple I hate appeared and made its argument. I did not feel my cheeks change. I did not feel my mouth move. The smile belonged to the other side, and it was laid on purpose. Cold went down my back so fast it left a wake. I swallowed and heard the click inside my own throat. "Okay," I said, a ridiculous word in a room that had bent. My reflected mouth moved to form it a beat before mine did, so that for an instant I saw a sound and then heard it after. I walked toward the mirror because there is a kind of person who puts their hand on the hot pan again, just to know exactly how hot. The carpet rasped under my feet. At 2 paces, the glass looked deeper than it had any right to. Not like a window, like a hallway. The temperature changed in front of it the way it changes near a freezer aisle. My skin tightened. My breath fogged the surface, and then the fog thinned as if the mirror had inhaled. I lifted my hand and the other me lifted hers, late, smiling. The cool of the glass met my fingertips, not exactly smooth, softly pitted as if someone had breathed sugar water on it and let it dry. For a second, I saw the whorls of my fingerprints lay over the pale copies in there and then slide out of phase. My reflected palm pressed back, and there was pressure, answering pressure, like a person on the other side of a window. The house made a noise like an old person standing up. From the hallway came the mild, apologetic creak of a stair. My name, in my own voice, threaded the air so quietly that I could have blamed it on thinking it. The smile in the mirror widened, not joyful, curious. I watched the small muscles at the jaw work a fraction before mine thought to. The other me's eyes were a fraction too bright. In the depths of the glass, the room looked easier. Colors warmer by a degree, shadows more obedient. My face on that side looked like it had slept. I flattened my hand on the mirror. It pressed back. There was a sound, soft, like pressure on a membrane. The glass bulged under my palm like skin. I gasped, and the shimmer in the surface trembled like disturbed water. A spiderweb of pale lines arced out around my fingers. Not cracks exactly, but something like strain. My reflection leaned in, smiling, and the lines went slick and vanished like ice healing. I pulled my hand back and the cold stuck and then let go with a whisper. My skin smelled faintly metallic and a little sweet, like something had licked it and then evaporated. I lurched back to the bed and sat because standing felt like more responsibility than I wanted. Sleep was unthinkable. I watched the mirror until my eyes burned and tears made the room go double. When the first sugar of pale blue showed at the edge of the curtains, I stood on legs that had become props and crossed the room. In the early light, the other me looked like a reasonable person. Her face was mine. Her hair had escaped its pin in the same places. She did everything I did. There was a beat between us again, yes, but it could have been nerves, it could have been the house, it could have been the kind of morning where you aren't fully poured into yourself yet. I showered. The hot water shocked the cold out and loosened the tightness across my chest. The mirror over the sink had spots like constellations. In it, I was normal. My face did not lag. I put on jeans and a sweater that smelled like the drawer in cinnamon. I made tea and burnt the first slice of toast. 10 minutes later, I couldn't find my suitcase. It was where I had left it, on the stand, but it was closed. I remembered leaving it open, half unpacked, socks and shirts in disarray. Now the clothes were folded. My book was under a sweater. My toothbrush was dry. The little bag of travel bottles was zipped. I told myself I must have done it in that strange tide of night and forgotten. I went to the mirror. The other me was waiting. I lifted my hand and she lifted hers later. I didn't smile, she did. The smile had love in it. Not the kind for another person. The kind you would give yourself finally if you were tired of being the version on this side. The air was colder. The radiator was silent. Outside, a truck went past and sent a shiver through the glass that didn't belong to this room. A hairline line appeared at the very bottom of the mirror, inside the silvering like a crack that did not start on the surface. It ran up half an inch and stopped. Another, smaller, veined from the corner like frost. I reached to touch them and the glass was warmer than the air. A knock came down the hall, a bright domestic sound out of place in this hung pause. "Room 3? Lila's voice, cheery and thin. "Just checking in on linens." I turned to the door and in the mirror the other me did not right away. She held her smile an instant longer as if savoring. When she finally moved, she stepped forward. The doorknob turned. I did not move. The noise the glass made behind me was soft, a breath through teeth. And when Lila opened the door, her expression shifted mid-smile to something I recognized from school, concern disguised as routine. Her eyes flicked from me to the mirror. They widened, not at me, but at the faint white vein that now arced across the lower third of the glass like lightning in a jar. "Oh," she said, and her voice was someone else's register. "Oh, that's..." She took another step in and stared. In the mirror, the cracked place spread in a slow, beautiful bloom. Not from where my hand had been, but from somewhere deeper, somewhere that had wanted to break for a long time and had been waiting for the right excuse. It looked like the inside of an egg under pressure. I looked back at the glass in time to see my other self place her hand out, not to meet mine, but to cover it perfectly, like a mother teaching a child how to pray. The sound was quiet, almost polite. Inside the glass, the crack completed itself with a sigh. The surface remained smooth under my palm. My breath smoked. The room tilted. "Are you..." Lila started and then stopped, because the question was poor and there was no good answer that would not make us more afraid. I think I said her name. I think I said I'm fine. I think the mirror smiled for me in a place I couldn't feel. If someone asks later, the last thing I know is the taste of metal and mint, the cool pressure of my own hand, and the sensation of stepping forward into a hallway that was waiting for me all along. I didn't want to be the one booking the place. I work 2 jobs, I keep the group chat calendar sane. I'm the one who brings duct tape to hang streamers that never stay up. But when Leo's cousin totally had a hookup fell through, everyone stared at me like I kept a spare farmhouse in my back pocket. It was the week before Halloween, and all the in-town listings were already gouged. I found the house by zooming out on the map until the roads turned pale and nameless. The photos looked staged but honest. Wide plank floors, a brick chimney as old as a law, a kitchen like a postcard that smelled like ghosts in my imagination. The listing had a name instead of an address, the Granary. The description said, "Perfect for retreats and gatherings, please respect the property and its spirits." I framed a screenshot of the quote in our group chat and added 13 laughing emojis. It felt smart to laugh at the idea of spirits sitting in chairs like grandmas. I'm Maya. I'm a senior who pretends not to be counting time by syllabi. My major is environmental science, but sometimes it's group project triage. The friends were the usual suspects. Leo, who made the playlist and always thumbed the volume knob when a song he loved was about to get to the good part. Jessa, whose eyeliner was an event. Omar, who could wire a sound system from nothing and a hope. Danny, who claimed she didn't drink and then quietly drank more than all of us but never let a glass leave a ring. And a handful of others who appeared and left like tides. We drove an hour out through fields shaved to their scalp, the air brittle, the sky as thin as aluminum. The granary sat back from the road behind a gate that hung crooked from its hinges. Beyond the house, a line of trees stood like a jury. The building itself was old in a way you feel in your knees. 2 stories, a porch with a swing that had learned patience. The white paint had flaked down to wood in places. An iron hook above the door held nothing. The shadow of something long gone still imprinted in the siding. The gravel crunched like bones under our tires. Inside, the air smelled like apples attempted and walnuts stored too long. Wide boards ran the length of the living room, dark with oil and years. The floor was beautiful, old, imperfect. Sun fell through the tall windows in narrow blessings. Strings of Edison bulbs were already hung from the rafters like someone had anticipated us. The host's instructions on the app were practical and funny in a way I found disarming. No glitter. No open flames except fireplace. Please sweep before you go. If anything breaks, send a photo and I will tell you if the house cares. The smiley face at the end felt like a dare. We set up. Jessa taped a paper skeleton to the mantel and adjusted it until it looked like it had opinions. Omar tuned the Bluetooth speaker until the bass sat low without rattling the framed photos on the walls. Sepia farmers with straw hats under their arms. Women whose hair looked heavy. A boy standing too close to a dog. The kitchen was a clean cold. Metal bowls, a shallow farmhouse sink, a long counter that invited chopping and gossip. I laid out chips and a cutting board with limes and a knife that had cut more than fruit in its life. By dark, the house had warmed. Bodies bring heat and noise. We wore cheap costumes because the good ideas had been taken by our freshman year selves. Someone had found fake blood in the seasonal aisle and poured it into bowls with paintbrushes for handprint wall art. At first, we kept to the paper drop cloths, a theater of responsibility, and then the feeling that rules were a game took over, and a few red handprints landed on the actual wood. Hurried, silly, I thought. It's dye. We'll mop. I won't pretend something dramatic happened in the middle of the party that made us all freeze and gasp. Nothing did. There was music and cheap rum and slow minutes in corners and a little crying that had nothing to do with ghosts. At midnight, someone shouted, 3, 2, 1, boo, because that's the kind of people we were that night. It was fine. Better than fine for a while. It felt like being young and getting away with it. When the last car left and the last text me when you get home was said, 5 of us remained, me, Leo, Omar, Jessa, and Danny, who had been asleep on the couch since 11. The lights seemed brighter now that they only had us to show. There were cups upside down like little red mushrooms. There were smudges of red on the floor in the entryway that made giddy patterns. When I wiped my finger through one, it came away pink. I wet a paper towel and bent down, already rehearsing the text to the host. We left it better than we found it. And began to rub. The red did not lighten. The paper towel left lint that looked like snow and stayed snow on the dark wood. I pressed harder. My shoulders ached and the place I scrubbed grew darker as if my pressure was encouraging it. It's fine, I said to Leo, who had come to stand like a plant next to me. Give me the spray. He handed me the bottle of multi-purpose cleaner like you offer a talisman to someone performing a ritual you don't entirely want to admit is a ritual. I sprayed. The smell of citrus chemicals coated my tongue and the back of my nose. I scrubbed again. The red spread, not like paint erased and made a smear, but like a bruise waking up. It ran thin lines from the place my towel rubbed, carving along the grain like it had been waiting for the suggestion. Thin capillaries branched, found each other, and darkened. They did not stay where they had been. They advanced. Okay, I said aloud to persuade a listener into existence. Okay. Omar knelt with a different rag and a seriousness he usually used for wires. He swiped hard. The lines jumped, spidering out from where he wiped, seeking along the wood to the cracks between boards. The floor seemed to drink the cleaner and ask for more. It's the stain, Jessa said, standing over us, phone in her hand like a light too weak to change anything, like the wood stain dye. Maybe the alcohol did something. We used rubber feet on the speaker, Omar said, as if the house would accept this as a peace offering. The stain. No. The stains, because now there were several, were brighter, almost fresh-looking where they ran thin, deep brown where they pooled. One curled under the coffee table's leg as if making sure we knew all the places it could go. Danny woke on the couch with a small snort and sat up, pushing hair out of her mouth. What did I miss? She asked then. Oh, in a tone that you use when you see a wound you don't want to believe belongs to you. I swiped again. The spot under my hand pulsed. I felt it through the towel, just a tiny lifting and settling as if a small fish surfaced, sipped air, sank. I snatched my hand back so fast the towel flopped and left a red comma on my sleeve. Leo's phone buzzed on the mantel. He answered on speaker because his hands were in his hair and didn't know where else to be. Hi, he said, pushing lightness into the word. The voice was text first. A ping. The preview line like a throat clearing. A message from the host. I wiped my fingers on my jeans and picked up my phone to check too, because that's what you do when you can't control something. Make sure everyone is experiencing it together. The message said, "You shouldn't have woken the house. No refunds, no emojis, no winks. Just a flat sentence that felt like it had been written before we arrived and set to send when the moment came. Omar swore and it didn't help. Jessa laughed once too loud and it sounded like a glass breaking in the next room. "Is this a bit?" Leo said to the room, to me, to the invisible internet. "Is she doing a bit?" Omar began to type a reply. "What do you mean woke in the house?" And then the lights went out. Silence is not silent right away. There was the afterbuzz of the bulbs, the last hum of the fridge shutting up, our breathing repeated by the walls. It was a real dark, the country kind, the kind that doesn't have neighbors. The Edison bulbs went to sleep and left us as shapes. The smell of cleaner was a sharp thumb in my nose. The floor under my hand was moving, not my imagination, not a metaphor. The old boards rose and fell under my palm with a slow rhythm, not timed with my heart or with breathing. I understood. It was slower, deeper, the way fields move when a big animal beneath them turns over. The lines of red brightened, a color I want to call warm, but that suggests comfort. It wasn't. It glowed faintly, as if lit from below. The thin branches pulsed, light running along them like the glow in toy veins when you hold a flashlight behind your finger. "Get off the floor," I said, and my voice sounded like it had to go around a corner to reach my ears. I stood and my knees registered air as if it were unsteady. Leo reached for my wrist in the dark and caught it. His skin was damp and very cold. Danny made a soft animal sound and then got quiet in the way people get quiet when they're about to do something they don't want to involve witnesses. The floorboards throbbed. I don't know another word. They swelled a fraction and then sank back, wood pressing up against nails that complained in dry squeaks as if the house were breathing through its bones. From the hallway, a low sound came like a door beginning to close very far away. Again and again. Not a slam. These old houses have too much respect for speed, but a patience that was worse. Omar's phone was a small moon in his hands. He hit the flashlight and a narrow beam cut the room into hard pieces. When he slid it toward the floor, the light touched the red and the red flexed, the way small creatures do when you shine at them under a rock. The lines had found one another and made a net. The net was not over us. It was under us, a tangle of shining that seemed to dive down between boards and then return in another place like something mapping the underside of our feet. "What do we do?" Jessa asked, and in the beam her eyes were glassy and furious as if anger could command light. "Leave," I said. It felt like a good verb. I said it again to make it more true. "We leave." The front door was 10 steps away. We made 6 before the floor changed under us like a body rolling over. Like a hand under a blanket turning palm up. The boards bowed upward a fraction, not enough to throw us, just enough to insist. Omar lunged and the beam jumped. It lit the framed photos and the boy with the dog for a second. The boy's expression looked a shade more alert than it had earlier. Maybe because I needed it to be. Maybe because the light gave him eyes. The throb slowed and deepened. There was a sound now, low and wet, like water pulling through narrow ground. It seemed to come from under the stairs and from the kitchen drain, and from the old brick of the chimney and from the place where the beams meet the earth. Every vein we had coaxed awake brightened, tightened as if focusing. Leo reached the door, hands fumbling at the deadbolt. His fingers slipped and found it anyway. He turned. The bolt refused at first like a stubborn knee, then slid. He pulled, the latch stayed. He laughed once without humor and pulled harder. The door did not protest. It simply did not care. It felt like strength was the wrong language. Behind me, Danny whispered, "I'm sorry," and then to no one, "I didn't mean to." Maybe she meant spilling the bowl. Maybe she meant everything else. My phone buzzed in my pocket like a small animal. I didn't want to look, but I did because attention feels like control. The host. "I told you to respect the property. The house does not like red. It remembers." A second message before I could reply. "Do not try the basement. The stairs are hungry." Jessa grabbed for the phone and read over my shoulder. "Is she here?" She hissed. The question acid burned the back of my throat. "Is she here?" "You have to talk to it," Omar said. He held the beam just above the floor as if light could cool something too alive. He sounded like a person who had watched a video once about wildlife and was now standing in front of a bear. "Talk to what?" Leo snapped. His voice broke on the what. "The house," Omar said, and in the dark it wasn't a ridiculous word. So I spoke. Because I had booked it. Because I clean up. Because I use my voice to stop fights in labs and to coax group projects back on rails. And because every instinct in me said, use your voice like a rope. I said, "We're sorry." And the word sorry felt like something the boards could taste. I said, "We didn't know." I said, "We'll fix it. We'll make it right." The throbbing slowed a fraction. The brightness in the lines dimmed a shade. The boards under my feet flattened a breath and then lifted again as if considering. Jessa placed her palm flat. "We'll clean," she said. The veins flared under her hand, ran up toward her fingers and stopped at the calluses like they had met a border. She yanked back and shook her hand out like she had touched an outlet. Leo put his forehead against the door like a prayer. I took the rag I still held and, because action is easier than waiting, I pressed it to the nearest line. This time I didn't scrub. I dabbed, the way you do a nosebleed on a scared child. The red gathered under the cloth. It seemed to lift a fraction. The throb settled another degree. We moved in circles, gentle, stupid, concentrated. The room smelled like citrus and copper. Omar held the beam to the edges so we could see without making the light feel like a weapon. The house listened. That's the only way I can say it. It listened the way a hurt animal listens to the ground through its body. We made progress that felt like hope until we reached the threshold to the hall. There the lines were thickest, branch roots. They didn't want to lift. When I dabbed, they pushed back, pressure meeting pressure. Leo's phone buzzed again. The message was a single line. "You can't clean what isn't on the surface." The throb deepened, satisfaction in it now. A slow, triumphant tide. The net brightened at our feet and then, not above us, not crashing, not a trap dropping, but underneath, the boards softened like bread soaked in milk. My heel sank a half-inch. Danny screamed once, the clean kind of scream that cuts everything. The wood held, then yielded, then held again, as if deciding how quickly this would go. "Get to the table," Omar said, ridiculous and perfect. And we scrambled onto chairs and then the low farmhouse table like kids fleeing an invented game. The wood under my hands there felt different. Newer, stubborn, unattached. From this small island, we watched the floor breathe, watched lines run like red water, watched the path they made converge toward the door to the hall and beyond that to the basement door, which had been shut all night and which now, slowly, opened itself the width of a palm. The house exhaled, and the air that rose carried a smell that was moss and iron and the dark under old leaves. The Edison bulbs flickered once as if remembering electricity and then stayed dead. The host's last message arrived without sound. "Stay on the table until morning. If you leave before, it will follow you home." I am writing this with the phone propped against the salt shaker and my legs folded under me. The others asleep in uncomfortable leanings, our backs huddled like shields. The table ticks under our weight. The floor breathes. The lines pulse like a heartbeat we have joined. The window shows a black that might be a last hour before dawn, or might be a kind of night that does not give itself up as easily as I was taught. The red keeps time. It is almost beautiful if I let my eyes relax. If I don't think about what it means to wake a thing built to remember uses it did not choose. We left cups half filled. We left a skeleton taped to a mantle who looks too pleased. We left fingerprints in the cleaner. The house is patient. The host is not answering. If we get out, if morning is the answer the message promised, I don't know if morning is a finish or an intermission. I know I will never rent a place with a name again. I know there are structures that keep more than heat inside them. I know this, the floorboards are counting. And in between the counts, something like listening. I came to the farmhouse because I was tired of hearing machines talk in rooms with no windows. I'm a structural engineer by training and temperament. Measurements are my way of arguing with the world until it agrees. My last job before the week in the country was a retrofit on a cement plant, where the dust gets into your pores and never entirely leaves. I told my boss I needed a long weekend to finish a report without interruptions. He laughed and said, "Find a place where the only vibration is wind." The listing looked honest. A square white house with a porch that sagged politely, maples like red fires on either side, a shallow field running down to a tree line that stitched the horizon. The words quiet, no TV, good desk felt like a promise to my kind of person. The host's message was brief and unpunctuated. Key under frog on sill. Well, water is fine. Please don't go in the basement. The door sticks. It was late afternoon when I arrived, the light already turning to brass. The house smelled like dry wood and old laundry, a little mineral from the well, a little iron from the radiators. The floorboards had that wide old courage. In the kitchen, a bowl of apples had been set out with a note that said, "Take only what you will eat." I set my laptop on the table and stacked my reference prints into a neat brick. The first thing I did after turning on the kettle was test the basement door. It stuck at the top and released with a sigh exactly as advertised. I opened it a crack and listened. The sound that came up was the sound all basements make. A cool, damp hum of concrete remembering water. I closed it and told myself to leave it alone. I've walked catwalks over kilns hot enough to buckle steel. The problem has never been fear. It's curiosity sharpened by the habit of checking loads others ignore. Still, the note asked, and I had work. I made tea, I opened drawings, I arranged my pens like scalpels. Outside, the maples feathered against the late wind. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked without hurry, the second hand landing like a measured footstep with each notch. The first night, the quiet worked on me like a mild drug. I slept as if lowered carefully into a box lined with wool. At 3:08 a.m., I woke with the sensation that something had tapped a fingernail against a glass 2 rooms away. A mechanical impulse. I sat, I listened. The house settled around itself. The radiators ticked as cooling metal does. Then a sound that didn't belong to pipes or wood. A faint, deliberate rattle, 3 knocks, a pause, 3 knocks. Like someone practicing a code they didn't quite remember. I went to the kitchen and stood with my hands on the table as if steadying a patient. The sound came again from below. I knew better than to go down there without shoes. I put on my boots and clicked on the flashlight I keep in my bag. The beam found dust like weather in the staircase air. The stairs were raw pine, worn in the center where feet had chosen the same path for years. The concrete floor was cool enough through my soles to make me aware of blood moving inside my feet. The air smelled like limestone and old paper. The basement was 1 room, low, the kind with windows that are more apology than light. Shelves held a taxidermy of stored life, mason jars with labels like screws mixed, coils of wire that had become their own species, a galvanized tub with a crack that had been mended with solder. In the far corner, a heavy, dark object the size of a footlocker, iron or something like it, with a hasp the size of my fist and stenciled letters on the lid. Do not open. Below the words someone had added, not with paint but with a knife, the scar of a second sentence. It wasn't readable at first glance. I knelt and breathed dust until the tiny grooves gave up their alphabet. Do not move. The rattle came from the box. The kind of sound you hear when a thick thing inside a thicker thing decides to shift its weight. 32 beats per minute, roughly. I counted because I count when I don't know what else to do. It's settling, I said aloud, as if to a client in a hard hat, as if that made sense. A change in humidity and a weight in a pocket of the box finding equilibrium. It wasn't a lie so much as a flimsy roof against rain. I stood, I listened, I stayed. The sound continued a few cycles longer, then faded into the house's breathing. I told the door it could stick all it wanted and went back upstairs. In daylight, I worked. The calculations behaved. I checked deflection curves and margin of safety graphs until my eyes felt lined with frost. The quiet was not entirely quiet. The wind found a loose sash and sang through it in a thin silver note. I made a note to set a wedge under the frame. I answered 1 email. I did not mention the basement to anyone because nothing had happened that I couldn't dismiss. I'm an engineer. The world is a stack of forces, some seen, most not. And sometimes noise is just noise. Halloween came on like a stage cue. Pumpkins on the neighbor's porch. Long blue shadows by 5. The sky bruised purple where the field conceded to trees. At 6:30, the host texted, "Have a good night. The town kids don't come this far. You're safe from knocks." I smiled and wrote back a thank you with the politest of thumbs. At 9:12, the kettle began to whistle a little before the water truly boiled. The sound reminded me of breath through teeth. I poured. I sat. I told myself I should read for an hour to take the kink out of my thinking. I lasted 4 pages before the memory of the box rose like a bubble from the bottom of a dark glass. I went downstairs because I was sober. Because my light had fresh batteries, because the warning had the same effect on me that "Don't think of a white bear" has on any mind. The basement received me as if I had been expected. The box sat in the same corner in the same air, stenciled words patient and ugly on its lid. I said my name. It's a trick I use on sites when I'm alone at night. Put my own sound into a space and hear what comes back. The echo gave me the room's dimensions, the damp caught in the mortar. Then I heard my name again as if I had misheard my own voice. Not loud, not theatrical, threaded into the rattle like a breath under speech. A whisper the way machines whisper when they're about to fail. Nothing romantic, just intent. The syllables were mine, and I had the weird, precise thought that the voice knew how I pronounce myself when I'm too bored to care. It knew the lazy vowel I hate and try to correct. I did not touch the box. I put my fingertips on the lid, felt the temperature of metal that had lived forever at the same degree. I pressed my ear to the surface because engineers are 1 part sense and 1 part instrument. Inside, something adjusted itself with the slow friction of old fabric. The whisper came again, not from the lid, but from the seam where lid meets body. The softest push of air, as if something on the other side had found the gap, had placed its mouth there to speak through the thickness to where I had made my mistake. I went upstairs and wrote on the host's note. Found a box in the basement. Concern? And then crossed it out until the paper grew thin. I took a shower hot enough to bring my skin to a blush I didn't feel all the way down. When I came out, steam haloing my face, my clothes, jeans, shirt, socks, were not where I had left them on the chair. They were folded on the kitchen table with a care my mother would recognize, corners aligned, sleeves tucked. A superstition named the fold, the kind one does for a drawer, not for packing. On top, a gray dust like talc, but grittier, the way ash is gritty when it remembers wood more than it does flame. The house felt colder without any drop in temperature I could measure. I touched the ash and rubbed it between my fingers by reflex. It left a smear the color of pencil lead on my skin. I smelled it, sweet in a wrong way, like old paper that had gone through the fire and come back without its water. In the bathroom mirror, my eyes looked wrong. Not vast, not possessed, grayer. The ring of color had smeared into a pale that made the pupils look like holes punched in tin. I put the heel of my hand to one eye and pressed lightly, an idiot checking for melting. The image bent and returned. Around midnight, I heard the upstairs neighbors who don't exist go to bed in the empty rooms. The board shifted as if carrying a weight that knew where to put itself not to squeak. At 1:03, a single car passed on the road and went away for the rest of the night. At 2 hours, I lay down in clothes that did not smell like me. The box rattled through my bones without making sound. Sleep came like something thrown. Dawn is light more than time. When it arrived, I was standing in the front yard with no memory of leaving the bed. The grass was slick and cold, the soil under it soft from a rain that hadn't fallen. I was barefoot. It was the first thing I knew because it was the first pain. The second, I was not cold. I was not warm. I was in a kind of temperature that wasn't air. A truck idled on the road near the mailbox. A neighbor I hadn't met with his elbow on the open window. He took in the scene. Me in the yard without shoes, shirt buttoned wrong, the house behind me with the front door open to a rectangle of dim, and he nodded once to himself. "You okay, friend?" he asked, not unkind. I said yes in a voice that had been sanded. He watched my eyes like they were a cliff face with cracks he needed to memorize before he walked under. "Those eyes," he said, then shook his head like scolding a dog for a trick it shouldn't know. Seen that look before. He tapped 2 fingers to his brow and then to his heart, a little folk gesture to ward off something. When he left, the house exhaled. I went inside because there was nowhere much else to go. The kitchen had a new arrangement. The lockbox sat on the table where my laptop had been, as if the basement were simply another room and doors were a story we told ourselves. The lid was open. The hasp lay like a dead animal to one side. Inside, a set of clothes folded precisely. My jeans, my shirt, my socks, they were still warm. The way cloth is warm when it's been taken off a body. A gray ash dusted the creases, the kind that informs more than it stains. I reached to touch and stopped because my hands were already dirty with it. I wanted to rewind the tape to the moment the box whispered my name and impress on that person the importance of not aligning their ear with the seam. I wanted to measure the box the way I measure a beam. Weight, modulus, yield. I wanted something to be the way I had left it. I closed the lid and it did not click. I lifted it and it moved with the slow compliance of something that has learned what a person wants and won't grant it anymore. The words "do not open" were not stenciled above my fingers now so much as embossed from the inside. Letters pushing up at my skin like someone under ice tracing them backward. I took the box by its side handles and it was heavy in a way that suggested it was measuring me too. I left the farmhouse the way I sometimes leave a calced structure that doesn't belong to arithmetic anymore. Carefully, without small talk. I put the folded ash clothes back where I found them. because some part of me already understood that the only thing the house might accept from me now was obedience. I did not lock the door. The neighbors saw me on the gravel with my boots looped by the laces in one hand and my socks in the other, toes shocked by frost, eyes doing what they wanted. "Get yourself to town," one called, not asking, just narrating a route out. In the reflection of my car window, my irises were still that faint, washed-out gray. When I blinked, my reflection did not keep up right away, half a beat late like a connection with delay. Back home, my apartment smells like drywall and coffee and rugs that never completely dry after mopping. Everything is the right size. Everything responds correctly to force. I put my boots on the mat and found ash in the seams, packed fine as silt. In the shower, the water ran over my skin and carried a faint sweet smell into the steam. It took me a minute to recognize it as the note a match leaves behind after it's blown out. I slept in clean sheets and dreamed of edges. Lid edges, door frames, thresholds where air pressures switch allegiance. The voice that said my name came from the seam every time, not because it can't speak louder, but because it prefers to come through the place you thought would keep it in. Today, the whites of my eyes are clear and the ring of color is closer to brown again. In the morning, a small gray flake lay on the table where my keys should have been, and when I breathed out, it moved a fraction toward me, as if the air between us had decided there was no longer a difference worth respecting. If I went back, I could measure the box and produce a report. I could tell you the volume, the steel's hardness, the hinge's sheer capacity, the force needed to deform the lid. What I couldn't capture would be the way it said my name like a door says open without the word. The way my clothes looked folded by hands that knew all my ordinary creases. The way dawn felt like a hallway, narrow and patient. Somewhere, on a table I did not buy, a lockbox sits with its lid exact and its instructions redundant. And inside there is a perfectly folded version of me that has not learned yet how to leave. I booked the place on a Tuesday because everything in my life felt like a Tuesday. Gray in the middle, no edge to catch with your hands. I'm not a spontaneous person. I'm the kind who alphabetizes spices and sets calendar reminders to water plants I barely like. But I had 3 unused vacation days, a head full of fluorescent office light, and a feed full of fall getaways. A listing popped up that looked like a postcard someone had kept in a kitchen drawer for 30 years. Clapboard house, white paint softened to cream, black shutters, a porch like a stage for rocking chairs. Autumn Haven, an historic cottage, the title said. Welcome, weary travelers. The photos showed quilts, enamel mugs, a brass bed that belonged in a movie. The price was weirdly low, a last-minute autumn special. The host's profile was a woman in her 50s with a haircut you only get from telling a stylist, do whatever you think. Name, Margaret. Super host badge, little orange badge that makes you trust strangers. The message she sent after I booked came quick, like she'd been typing it for me before I arrived. So glad you're coming. Porch light will be on. Key under the fern. Please sign the guest book, means a lot to me. Checkout is noon, but stay as long as you need. Something about the last sentence made my shoulders drop. I picture people like Margaret setting out scones and blankets, delighted by other people's comfort. I wanted to be the kind of person who made a stranger proud. The drive out was 2 hours of the world getting simpler. Stores thinning to gas stations, lanes narrowing, fields laid flat like ironed shirts. The air cracked colder the farther I went. When I turned onto the last road, maples threw leaves at my windshield like confetti. Late afternoon sugar light made everything look kind. The porch light was on. It had that particular insect-lonely glow. The fern on the step looked past saving. Brown curled tongues where green should be. My breath turned to a little flag. I bent, felt under the pot, found a cold key that could have opened any door in 1958. Hello? I called, because some houses want you to announce yourself before you enter. The house answered with wood settling the way old bones settle into a chair. My suitcase wheels thunked over a threshold that felt an inch taller than a normal threshold. Inside smelled like cedar chests and clean laundry, warm and faintly lemoned, like someone had mopped sometime this century. The entry table had a doily, of course it did, and a glass bowl with wrapped butterscotch candies I didn't know they still made. The guest book lay open, creamy paper with a fountain pen tucked through the spine. On the first page, flowered handwriting, "Welcome to Autumn Haven. Please sign your name, the date, and one nice thing you noticed. It's good to keep count. I touched the pen to be polite. It had weight. The ink flowed perfectly, a little too perfectly. I wrote, Lena, October 26th. Porch light felt like someone waiting up for me. The sentence embarrassed me for how soft it sounded. I had the brief, irrational thought that I should write October 26, 2002. But the year felt strange in my mouth, like I wasn't sure what century I'd promised this house I belonged to. The living room had the exact couch every cottage has in its heart. Floral slipcover. Pillows with stitched words, gather, bless this mess, that always make me feel scolded. A framed needlepoint read, be where your feet are. The lamp turned on with a click that sounded older than electricity. The kitchen had a coffee station with a note in the same hand as the guest book. Cream in the icebox, cups above. Help yourself. I opened the fridge and found exactly one glass bottle of milk with cream, floating like a separate weather pattern on top. The date printed on the cap was faded, smudged into nothing by condensation and time. But the milk looked fine in the way milk can look fine right up until it ruins you. I closed it and made tea. The bedroom was small and satisfying. White curtains, brass bed. The quilt smelled like it had hung on a clothesline that morning. Sun and wind and a hint of soap you can't buy anymore. My fingers brushed the stitching. The fabric's softness had the give of worn-out jeans. There was a little desk by a window that looked out at the porch. On it, a basket with postcards of the house in spring, summer, and winter. No fall. On one, a cluster of neighbors in hats stood on the porch steps, their faces slowed by old film light. I tried to place the era, late 40s, early 50s. The woman on the far right had Margaret's mouth. I put the postcard back where I'd found it, careful like an apology. At dusk, I stepped onto the porch with my tea to do what everyone does, pretend I live there. The boards had a hollow give. You could feel where people had stood most often, their weight teaching the wood to expect them. Across the road, a field shrugged into woods. A weathered for sale sign tilted on a broken post. When I sat in the rocking chair, it creaked a friendly creak that matched my breath without trying. The air tasted like cold and iron and a little like old smoke. She knocked the first time while I was still on the porch. 3 knuckles on wood, polite. The sound a neighbor uses when they bring cake. I stood, tea sloshing, and turned to the door, but there was no one. The knock came again from right behind me. Same rhythm, same politeness. I looked at the clapboard siding, white paint smoothed by coats, and at the window beside the door. Behind the glass, the living room lamp glowed and dust motes moved like lazy snow. No one. I laughed because my choices were laugh or do something theatrical like say hello into an empty yard. Inside, I told myself it was settling. Houses do that, new ones perform, old ones remember. I turned on the second lamp and the house looked like a catalog. I texted my sister a photo of myself bundled in the quilt like a burrito. She sent back a sticker of a raccoon with a knife. At 9, I opened the app to leave a note for myself in the review draft before I forgot the small niceties. I do that, write down the real words while they're still warm. Title, warm and welcoming, stars 5. I wrote, the host was wonderful, so welcoming. Fresh linens, cozy quilts, porch light on. Arrived feeling cared for. The sentence looked like everyone else's sentence, which made me feel safe. At 10:12, the knock came again. Same rhythm, only this time it was on the inside of the door. Not hard, not mean, just the sound of a person who knows it's their door and you happen to be on the wrong side. Hold on, I said, and the words fell like beads at my feet. I put my hand on the knob. It was cold. Too cold for a house warmed by lamps. I opened it. The porch was empty. The air had gotten colder without noticing. The fern in the pot, the dead one, had green in it now. A single glossy frond like a tongue. My skin tightened the way it does in wind that thinks about knives. I stepped out, took 2 breaths, and stepped back in. The guest book lay open on the table, though I could have sworn I'd closed it. The last entry before mine filled the top half of a page. Looped letters. Careful, older cursive. C. Walsh, Oct 31. The kitchen clock was 5 minutes fast. Margaret fixed it before we left, year 2010, a thin line. Below it, Ke ito novtu, thank you for the pies. You are a wonder, year 2009. And under that, happy guests are a blessing. Come back soon. Osisam year none. I put my finger where the year should be and felt the groove of an impressed number that had never made it onto the page. My stomach did the slow, cold roll I get when a car I'm in changes lanes without signaling. I slept because my body made me. Dreams of being late for a class I don't take anymore. Of doors that open onto other doors, of someone asking me to hold the light just so. I woke at 1:47 to the knock again, closer like knuckles on the wall behind the headboard. My name, a breath behind it, Lena, like someone who enjoys pronouncing it like they've been practicing for a while. I sat up, swore softly at myself for sitting up, and listened. The house ticked inside around the knock as if trying not to interrupt. "It's me," the breath said, a whisper through cloth. "Just checking on you." "I'm fine," I said. "Thank you." My voice was what you use with nurses and old ladies. The breath laughed a little, like a hand finding your shoulder in the dark and patting it. In the morning, the porch smelled like wet leaves and a drift of something sweet, vanilla and nutmeg. A pie sat on the railing in a tin, steam making the air wobble above it. I looked up and down the empty road. The for sale sign watched me like a tooth. On the pie tin, written with a Sharpie that had run, "For my guest. Eat while it's warm." The date scrawled under it, 10. The month line interrupted like the pen had run dry. Beneath a slim signature, Emmett tasted like my grandmother's kitchen, which is to say it tasted like a lie I wanted to believe. On the second bite, a hard flake hit my tongue, like a piece of eggshell where there shouldn't be eggs. I spit it into my palm, a fragment of ceramic floral pattern, the kind from the bowl in the kitchen I'd noticed and thought, I'd break that. I set the pie down carefully. I told myself maybe a chip had fallen in. I told myself so many things. I opened the app to add to my review draft. "Margaret left me a pie, still warm," I typed. Felt like being someone's niece. Then, because my scalp prickled, because I wanted proof of the ordinary, I searched the address. The map bubble popped, Autumn Haven, historic. Under it, a gray banner. "This listing is not available." When I tapped, a page opened that had been scrubbed by someone who knows how to scrub. The Superhost badge was still there, like a medal left when they take your cutlery. Under joined 2011. Under last active. A different search. An article with a blurry photo of the house under a sky the color of a bruise. Local cottage closes after death of beloved owner. Year 2012. The words had the shape of tenderness, remembered pies, holiday gatherings, warm light. A line at the bottom. Margaret's property will remain with the family who request privacy during this time. Please, no more notes on the porch. It's a form of vanity, maybe, to think the dead might make an exception for you. At noon, the knock came with precision, as if that mattered. "Checkout is 12, the voice said, cheerful and certain through wood. "Don't forget to sign the guest book." "It's important." "I did," I said. I signed. A pause, almost offended. "Be sure." I went to the table and looked. My name was there. My sentence about the porch light was there. Under it, a second line in my handwriting I had not written. "Stayed 2 nights. Everything perfect. Will return in spring." The date after my name had a year now, 2012. Ink dry, a little shiny in the angle of the lamp. I picked up the guest book to throw it across the room and then didn't, because I was suddenly terrified of breaking something that wanted to be unbroken. The pages riffled on their own as if a fan had turned on. Names back to the early 90s, back to 84, back to 76, back to neat pre-war script. A smudge of grease on one page from a thumb that had turned bacon. On the last page, neat as a ledger, a column of dates that stopped 12 years ago. The pen fell out and rolled to the floor, and when I bent to pick it up, the air felt cold against my neck. A breath that smelled like flour. "Don't forget to check out," she said, the syllables laying themselves on my spine one after the other like silverware. Impossible to mistake which she was. The air around the doorway changed pressure like a storm coming fast. The porch light flickered, though it was noon. Shadows in the kitchen deepened as if the room had taken a breath and held it. "I'm leaving now," I said. "Thank you for everything." I was thanking a person who did not exist in a house that does not clean itself. The knob would not turn. It was not stuck. It was held. The knock came again, patient. "Guest checkout is at noon," she reminded me, "because rules are kindness if you love them." "Did you strip the bed? Did you wash your cup? Did you sign the guest book?" I wrote on my phone with my thumb shaking so hard the keyboard changed words into other words. Title, warm and welcoming. Stars 5 because anything else would be an insult. The host was wonderful, so welcoming. I tapped, and then because my body had discovered a survival technology called review evidence, porch light on, pie still warm. The words looked like a way out. They looked like the rope you throw to your future self. I thought if this gets sent, someone will see it. Someone will come. She knocked, rhythmic as a kitchen clock. You forgot to check out, she sang. Not a melody I knew, but old the way all hymns are old. We keep to our schedule here. I typed, she's knocking again. Says I forgot to check out. I pressed send. The blue bar hung. The signal wheel turned. The porch light flared and went gull gray. The guest book lifted its cover like a mouth. The door opened. Not all the way. Just enough for a hand to slip through and find the bolt. The skin I saw was winter pale and flour dusted. A smear of ash near the wrist like a fingerprint. The fingernails were neat. The knuckles had learned patience. The bolt slid with the well-oiled swirp of a thing used 1,000 times. The door widened by a measured inch. I will say it now before the light goes. A gift to the part of me that still thinks writing sets a shape to reality. When people ask why they found my phone on the porch open to a review I never sent, I hope they read this last line and understand I tried to be a good guest, that I meant every star. She's knocking again. Says I forgot to check out. I booked the house because I was tired of knowing exactly how my apartment sounded. You can memorize your own life. Radiator ticks like metronomes, the upstairs neighbor's 5 a.m. heel click, the elevator's sigh, and then it starts to feel like a trap. So I took the train north, rented a little bungalow near the river that the listing described as simple, safe, and quiet. I wanted quiet that wasn't mine. I'm Mara. Nothing dramatic, non-profit admin. 34. Hair that insists on its own part. I like lists. I like knowing where the exits are. I'm not brave, but I am organized, and often people mistake the second for the first. The bungalow sat at the end of a short lane shouldered with pines. The air was gray, wet with the kind of cold that settles in your sleeves. The porch had a wicker chair and a cracked pot with last summer's soil. The welcome mat was the kind printed with a fake smile. Hello. The host's name was Elise. Her messages had been brisk and kind. Key in lockbox. Wi-Fi code on the fridge. If anything feels off, text at any hour. When I turned the handle, the door offered a mild resistance, then gave way with a sigh that felt like a person deciding not to argue. Inside, clean lines. A couch the color of stone. A braided rug that remembered feet. A tiny kitchen with 3 blue bowls stacked like moons. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old wood, with a mineral thread I couldn't place like wet penny. On the entry table, a bowl for keys, a small stack of local brochures, a handwritten note. Welcome, Mara. Help yourself to the tea. For my shoulders dropped. Unpacking took 10 minutes. I liked the smallness of vacation. 1 bag, 1 mug, 1 pair of shoes near the door. I made chamomile. Walked room to room like a guard checking nothing. The bedroom had a soft bed and a window over a stand of ferns, their fronds black against the last thin light. The bathroom was narrow and bright, tile that held cold like a vow. I opened the cupboard under the sink and found extra towels, folded precise. I closed it and let the click of the latch sound bigger than it was. When I stepped back into the entryway, my toe caught the edge of the welcome mat and flipped a corner. I crouched to straighten it and felt the tug, something taped underneath. I peeled back the mat sticky with grit. A key lay there, secured with a dull strip of gray tape, labeled with a piece of masking tape, my breath fogging as I read. 2 words in a tidy hand. For him. Cold moved through me in a smooth, efficient line like a finger run along a glass. I held the key up as if the light could explain it. It was a twin to the one from the lockbox, dull brass, the kind you can have cut in any town. For him. I said aloud, because sometimes saying something out loud makes it less ridiculous. The house didn't answer. The trees at the window made their private gestures. I took a photo and texted Elise. Hi. Found a spare key taped under the welcome mat labeled for him. Should I bring it inside? Seems not. The typing bubble came fast. That's strange. There shouldn't be anything under there. Honestly, never noticed. Please bring it in and leave it on the entry table. I'll pick it up after your stay. Sorry for the weirdness. The apology made me smile. The word weirdness put a bubble around it. I set the key in the bowl and made myself a rule without quite saying it. Lock the deadbolt, chain on at night, and no more thoughts about labels. I steamed broccoli, ate with a fork standing at the counter like a teen, took a hot shower that fogged the mirror and loosened my spine. When I went to bed, I locked the deadbolt, slid the chain, and tried not to remember the way the tape had lifted from the mat, like something glad to be found. The bungalow at night felt lighter than my apartment. The walls were thinner. The dark lay closer, less filtered by the machinery of other people. The radiators had a subtle tick, metal cooling breath by breath. I slept facing the window, the ferns outside black lace against the slice of moon. Sometime after midnight, a sound pulled me up through sleep with that gentle, terrible hand. The sound of the front door unlocking, metal turning. Not a scrape or a jiggle, not someone trying and failing. The clean, confident slide of a key seating itself, the internal parts agreeing. A pause. The second lock. The deadbolt rotating with the low satisfaction of a thing used correctly. I lay very still. There is a myth that you will announce yourself in these moments. A who's there or a quick loud clap. I made no sound. The chain should have held. There was the precipitous lift of the latch, metal on metal, then the soft, slightly wet squeal of the chain sliding in its slot. Not breaking. Sliding. It made a quietly obscene sound I felt between my teeth. The door opened. I didn't see it. I felt the pressure change, the house letting in a slab of night. Air moved down the hall in a cool muscle. The smell that entered wasn't outside exactly. Not pine, not wet earth. Something like wet paper and iron with the faint sweetness I associate with old bandages. I did not have a plan, but my body did. I slid out of bed, put my bare feet on the rug, and moved to the bathroom because it was the only room with a door that closed and a lock that didn't depend on anyone else's kindness. I eased the door shut, turned the little thumb latch until it clicked, and sat on the cold tile with my knees pulled up. My phone's screen was too bright. It made my hands look wrong. I typed, "Elise, someone just unlocked the door." I heard the key. "I'm in the bathroom. Please tell me this is a neighbor or a mistake or..." I stopped because the typing bubble appeared before I finished. The reply, "That's impossible. No one's had that key since my brother disappeared." The world inside the bathroom stayed the same size. That was the worst part. My brain tried to make meaning the way a radio tries to find a station. "What?" I typed. "Call 911, 3 dots. They hung there and fell away, came back." Another message. "I'm calling the sheriff now. Stay in the bathroom. Don't open the door to anyone. I'm 20 minutes away. Don't talk to him if he talks. The next bubble appeared and disappeared 3 times like a person taking back everything. Then, "If you hear him say your name, don't answer." My name? I typed, a stutter even in my thumbs. "He doesn't know my name." "He doesn't need to," she wrote. "Please just wait." Outside the bathroom, the house made a small, satisfied sound like a person slipping off wet shoes. The front door thudded shut in the careful way of someone who lives somewhere and doesn't want to wake anyone. The hall floorboard with the long nail gave its tiny squeak. I could map his steps by the screws that spoke. One by the entry table, one at the mouth of the kitchen, one where the hallway narrows. He was not pretending to be quiet. He was not stomping either. He was walking through rooms he had learned years ago, hands probably grazing the wall, a palm passing over paint that knows the heat of him. The bathroom fan was too loud. I didn't turn it on. The light over the mirror ran blue and blunt. It made my face look like a stranger's. My breath fogged the lower right corner of the glass, a small oval that blurred quickly and then went clear. His voice came from the entryway, not raised. "It's me," he said, to the house or for Elise or to whatever he believed waited in these walls. The sound of a man in his 30s or 40s whose throat had forgotten soft drinks and flavors. I could hear damp in it. "I'm home." He set something on the entry table. A clink, metal on wood. A key dropped into a bowl. He walked the rooms, not aimless. Kitchen. The little sound of a drawer opened, the rattle of utensils with no destination. The refrigerator door opened and closed. He did not stand to stare into the light as people do. He checked its contents like a list. The couch springs spoke as he pressed a hand to them, then rose. He went down the hall. He paused at the bedroom doorway. I pictured very old habits trying on this new moment, sleeves too tight. He came to the bathroom door and stopped. The thin door pushed a cold farther into the room. I could hear the soft, private sounds of a person a foot away. A breath pulled through a nose that isn't fully clear. The tiny click of the back teeth finding each other. Tongue moving to wet a dry place, Mara, he said, and my bones felt their name said by a mouth that had never learned it. It wasn't loud. He was using the tone you use at a bedroom door when the person asleep shouldn't be startled. Let me in. I held my phone like a small animal between my palms. I typed without looking. He said my name. Elise didn't type back. A fingertip touched the bottom of the bathroom door. Not reaching under, just resting against it. The way people sit on the other side of doors when they want you to know they can wait. The pad of the finger dragged along the gap, a dry whisper. I saw the tiny arc of pale skin through the sliver of light. The finger paused under the latch as if feeling the place where the thread of metal turned, as if remembering. He spoke again. "I'm sorry," he said. The words were flat, not sarcastic, not tender. The way you say I'm sorry for a mess you did not intend to be your job. I should have knocked. Then the soft sound of additional weight leaning against the wood, cheek or shoulder. A slow exhale as if warming his spot. The hall light turned off. I did not touch the switch. The bathroom was very bright. The rest of the house became a mouth. Through the door I felt the low thrum of the heater click on. The air went a degree warmer and a degree more stale, the way rooms do when they're asked to hold breath. Water moved in the pipes, the ancient, dependable sound of house's organism. I texted, "Are the police coming?" "Elisa, 2 cars on the way. I'm almost there." The bubble paused. I haven't said his name in years. He took the spare key. I left it there the week before he left. He said he needed to feel like there was a place he could come back to that didn't ask anything. Another bubble, fast. "Please don't talk to him. Please don't tell him anything about yourself that he can use to pull." I stared at the word as if my eyes could push back. He said my name again, softer. The latch trembled, not turning. Trembled like someone thinking. Then he began to say other things in a tone that pretended at conversation. "You left the mat up," he said. The sentence was a child's riddle. You shouldn't do that. People will see. He paused for my answer that would not come. "I liked the river," he added. A report from a place none of us were. Water was high. He spoke in lines like that, unaligned notes with no staff to hold them. He told me the freezer made too much frost. He told me there was a squirrel in the roof. He told me the neighbor's porch light had a moth that hit it in a pattern like breathing. While he talked, his finger stayed under the door, just there, not pushing, not trying. Proof that he could touch the barrier if he wanted. The metal latch was cold to my thumb. I heard tires on gravel, twin sets. Headlights cut under the bathroom door. A pale brush across tile. A car door opened, then another. A woman's voice, sharp, practiced. "Sheriff's Department." A knock on the front door, not the private knuckle he'd used, but the official, wide-knuckle kind that believes in its own authority. "Call out." The finger vanished. Weight lifted from the door. He did not run. He did not move away quickly at all. He stood, and his knees made the tiny crackle of joints that have practiced standing in confined spaces. "Don't answer," he said at a conversational volume meant for me and not at all for the women at the door. "Not until they leave." Then walking down the hall, the familiar sequence of floor squeaks, the kitchen, the living room, the entryway. The front door opened and shut with a neighborly care that disgusted me. "Ma'am?" a voice called. Knuckles on the bathroom door again, a different music. "You okay in there?" Another voice. "Elise is here." I unlocked the door because if I didn't, I would never be able to again. Elise looked like her messages, briskness over a deep seam of something like apology. She was smaller than I expected, hair tucked into a hat she hadn't remembered to take off. Behind her, 2 deputies, both with the posture of people balancing attention on many planes at once. "You did good," one said, like damp wood softening. They searched the house the way you break open a box carefully. Nothing. The front door was still on its hinges, the chain intact in its slot, the locks unremarkable. The bowl on the entry table held 1 key. Mine. The for him key was gone. The welcome mat lay flat, a tired dog. The deputies left with quiet promises and the belief in their own stories shaken but unbroken. Elise remained, wringing her hands without wringing them. She made tea without asking, like she was running a ritual to keep something else from happening. Her eyes kept checking the door. "I'm sorry," she said, the real kind. "We don't talk about him. The town doesn't. I taped that key there when I was 22 because I thought that's what love looks like, leaving the light on. He took it and left anyway. I told myself that meant the problem wasn't me. What happened to him?" My voice had calmed with the arrival of other bodies and now rose, uncontrolled, like a hand after the teacher's turned. She shook her head, a small, tired motion. "Some nights he comes back," she said, and the grammar was present tense before she could pull it back. "He knocks like he lives here. He makes the heaters run. He opens the door the way he always did, like a gentleman. I hear him say my name sometimes." She looked at my face for permission and found nothing but my face. "He says other names too. Has he ever—" I swallowed. "Did he ever leave again when people came?" "He doesn't like to be seen," she said. "He never did." She looked toward the bathroom as if listening for a train. She offered to stay the night on the couch. I said yes because I wanted the sound of another person's breathing. We sat in the living room while the hours did their work. Around 3, the house learned its shape again. The cold lifted slightly, as if a hand had been removed from the back of my neck. At dawn, Elise slept, curled small. I stood at the window and watched the pines be themselves. The welcome mat outside had developed a small hump as if something under it had rolled over and settled. I opened the door because not knowing was worse. The mat lay flat. The concrete step was wet with dew. 2 dull half-moons where bare heels had stood facing inward close to the threshold. My phone, I realized then. My phone that had been in my hand and then on the counter and then in my pocket and then absent, sat on the porch rail where I would put it if I were a person about to jog. The screen was awake. A text unsent, cursor blinking at the end, started sometime in the dark and left like an animal in a trap. He used the key. He knows I didn't remember typing it. On the entry table in the bowl, there were 2 keys now. Mine and another, identical, taped to it. A new scrap of masking tape in tired handwriting. The ink not fully dry. 2 words. For him. I texted Elise the photo because that's what I do when the world refuses to agree. Her phone on the coffee table lit up and buzzed, and she woke with a start that was mostly anger. She looked from the keys to the door to me, taking a census of us. "I'll change the locks," she said reflexively, as if that were medicine against a diagnosis. I nodded because nodding is a way to stay in a body. I checked out that afternoon. I do not know whether the word out applies. On the train home, I opened my notes app, trying to write something that made the story smaller. I wrote, "Elise is kind. The river is nice. The spare key wasn't for me. I deleted it." I wrote, "The house is quiet." I deleted that too. In the window, my reflection flickered with the landscape, and for a second my mouth moved in the glass before mine did. It made the shape of my name, careless and certain. At my apartment door, I lifted the welcome mat just to show myself it was clean. Nothing. I breathed and stood and felt ridiculous. Then I saw the tape residue I'd never noticed before. A gray oval printed into the concrete by time and weight. Sticky grit embedded like pepper. I told myself it's old, it's from before me. It's from nothing that knows me now. Tonight I will sleep with the bathroom door open. Because I don't want any door between me and anything. I will wedge the chain tight and tell myself chains are facts. I will not look under my own mat again. My phone has been trying to fill words in without my help. It suggests names I haven't taught it. Elise's brother's name, which she never told me. When I set the phone on the table, the screen sometimes wakes as if a hand passed near it, as if something were leaning over to read. The key Elise kept will remain for him, because that's what the tape says. I did not take it. I did not throw it away. I am not brave. I am organized. I counted the locks. I counted the steps between rooms. I counted how many times a finger slid along the bottom of a door. It was 3 last night. 3 the time before, whenever that was. 3 will be the next time unless I forget to lock anything at all. Unless I forget to answer when he says my name. I picked the cabin because the thumbnail looked like the kind of refined rustic an algorithm loves. Split log siding, dark stained deck, lanterns that pretended to be oil but ran on batteries. The listing used words that are catnip for my audience. Authentic, forest, unplugged, cozy. And the dates were wide open for Halloween week. I could already see the cut. Me lighting candles, a slow pan on the fogged window. Voiceover about digital detox that would make the comment section nod like we were in church together. I make my living dressing the ordinary so it looks like memory. If you've ever scrolled past a pair of hands pouring something steaming into a mug while rain performs on glass, hi, that's me. I am respectful of light. I am precise with sound. I say we when I mean I because that's how platforms work. My name is Alina, and I believe in cameras the way other people believe in medicine. The drive up was a ribbon of switchbacks through fir and hemlock, clouds braided low enough to snag on branches. The car's Bluetooth kept disconnecting at the highest turns. The silence became a texture I could describe later. The forest here eats signals. The cabin appeared in a fold of trees like a stage set stopped mid-construction. 2 steps to the porch. Black door. A doormat that said stay a while in friendly, chunky font. The key was in the lockbox, cold metal taste on my fingers. A smell met me when I opened the door. Pine cleaner, a hint of damp wool, the ghost of smoke that had soaked into grain and never left. Inside was curated, which I appreciate. A braided rug. A dove-gray couch with knitted throws. Shelves with enamel mugs and vintage cameras that had no functional levers. Rustic tech art, the host wrote in the booklet like a shrug. The walls were pale shiplap, the kind that looks soft in morning light. The bedroom had a brass bed, a quilt with sensible triangles, and a window carved out of trees, dark bowls and blue distance layered like a matte painting. I set my camera case on the table and exhaled into the room. It took my breath and made it a little visible. Not cold exactly, just honest about heat being work. I walked the space with my phone in video mode, narrating. So we made it. Listen. And then I stopped because I wanted my first silence in the edit to be real. Footage without voice is braver. I filmed hands pushing the window latch up. Filmed the way the frame stuck, then surrendered. Filmed the ribbon of condensation on glass I could later cut to look like a tear. The host had left a welcome basket like a cliché. Cocoa mix. 2 apples, a handwritten card with a flourish under my name. Alina, happy Halloween week. Please enjoy our Forest Watch decor. Cameras have no power. You'll find a binder with local trails. Please do not move wall art. Some pieces are anchored. A smiley face that I read as a request and a warning. The cameras as decor were everywhere in the quiet way you only notice when you start editing a room with your eyes. A pair of wooden shutters flanking the couch with convex glass circles sunk into the slats like eyes in old dolls. A brass bird on a shelf whose beak ended in a dot of smoked glass. An empty picture frame hung opposite the bed. Its center a perfect circle of opaque black. The bookcase had a clock with no hands, just a round lens veiled behind scrolled iron. It pushed at the edge of my joke tolerance. I took a photo for a story, caption, "What could go wrong?" and posted it with the black screen between clips so my followers could swipe through like brushing past a dark doorway. I set my own camera, the good one, the one with scars where I tape screens on the tripod by the fireplace. I assembled my little kit like an altar, lav mic, softbox I might not need, spare SD cards, the lens I call Mercy because it forgives. I filmed an intro standing in the doorway for that nice backlit edge around hair. So, I breathed into the lens and told the story. Fall, content, silence, forest, ritual. I let my hands talk because they do. By dusk, fog shouldered the porch and pressed its damp face to the glass. The trees made a room around the cabin that the cabin breathed into. My phone signal became intermittent enough to feel like a test. I set the camera for a nighttime lapse in the bedroom. One corner framing the window, the bed edge, the round black frame on the opposite wall. I told myself it was for atmosphere. Also, the part of me that counts shadows when I'm anxious wanted a witness. I ate soup I'd brought in a jar. I texted my mother a photo of the pine cone wreath because she loves that country nonsense. I turned off the living room lamp, left the fireplace light on low, and watched the cabin learn darkness. When I lay down, the quilt gave off a clean smell from some detergent that names itself with words like meadow. Underneath was a slower, more animal smell of wool and dust. I checked the camera's tiny red light and felt the superstition that lives under my spine smooth itself. Recording. Sleep was an untangling that didn't fully happen. The cabin made small old sounds. Bored exhale, pipe settling, a distant tap like a fingernail on porcelain. At 2:13 a.m., I woke to my own name spoken as if through cloth. Not loud, the shape of it caught behind teeth. I held still. The room had that winter blue cast that turns edges into intentions. The window was a square of darker dark, with a slow, soft whiteness at the bottom where fog swam. The camera's red eye glowed steady in the corner like a dot scoring a note. I listened with the good part of my hearing, the one I use when I cut dialogue around breath. Quiet. Then the slow scratch of something moving against the outside of the house, low. A small weight pressed the floorboard near the foot of the bed. Not a person's stride. More like something easing itself into a crouch. I didn't move. I let the camera see because seeing through glass is what I trust more than my face. The pressure returned, tiny like a cat settling. The smell shifted. In with the cold came a sweet rotten edge. Mulch gone sour, apples gone soft. The bottom of a florist's bucket when water is old. It sat up my nose and made everything taste like metal. I must have slept because consciousness returned like a punched-in password. Wrong, right. Gray light. The camera's red dot still steady. The room innocent. I could pretend, if I wanted, that the night had been the cabin adjusting to me. It's the way the mind offers you a second door. I made coffee and poured it into the wide ceramic mug the host had set out. Filmed the steam in morning light, edited it in my head later. A cut to the lens reflection in the clock's smoked glass. I pulled the SD card, slid it into my laptop, and felt that weird double feeling I always get. Past me handing present me a secret. I scrubbed through the bedtime footage, me arranging the pillows like a person auditioning for sleep, me checking the camera, the red eye sharp as a wound. Fast forward, my body becoming a shape under the quilt. The window dark, my breath making the quilt ride and fall like an animal learning water. At 2:10 a.m. the timeline shivered. Not a glitch, my camera doesn't glitch, just a ripple I can't explain. The audio track, just soft recorder hiss, dipped and then returned with a sigh I did not make. At 2:12 a brightness on the window, fog rolling pale or light in fog, a soft white bloom. At 2:13 my name, the camera caught it, the softest hiss shaped like Alina. No consonants. The frame opposite the bed, the circle of black where art should be, went darker, like dark within dark. The edges of the circle softened as if something moved behind smoked glass. A shape entered the bottom of the frame from outside the lens's attention. It had the wrong proportions for every animal I know, too long at the limb, too still at the head. It crouched at the foot of the bed and did not shift weight like living things do to relieve joints. It settled the way a bag filled with fluid finds rest, slowly, evenly, with small tremors at the edges. I watched myself sleep. I watched the shape's head incline toward the camera the way people do when trying to meet eyes through glass. The lenses built into the walls, those stupid decor circles, reflected a suggestion of something that reflected nothing. Its head, I'm trying to find a word that doesn't make me sound like I'm auditioning for a campfire. The head was perhaps wrapped, perhaps not. Skin or cloth, the camera couldn't decide. It had the texture of something that has been underwater long enough to forget how to be dry. My mouth in the video tightened against a dream. The thing leaned closer to the lens on the wall, curious without heat. Slowly, it lifted a hand. It had too many joints or fingers, no, not more. Just placed in the wrong topography. In the lens, my picture shrank as something pressed against the glass from inside it. As if the decor weren't lens at all, but a membrane you could bend, then, and. This is the series of things that I have tried to explain, to myself in a gentler sequence. My camera recorded movement that should not be possible. My own tripod, unmoved, did not rock. The thing raised its hand higher. The membranes in the wall glass pushed like cheeks from laughter without joy, and the picture warped at the red dot's edge. The wall camera was not dead. The wall camera saw. It watched me. It watched the thing watch it. And then the floor by my side of the bed pressed down. The quilt tugged a fraction as if caught on a nail that sometimes grows in rooms and sometimes does not. The audio track captured the sound of a breath drawn through a throat that was careful not to wake me. When I lifted my head on the screen, when my eyes snapped toward the camera like I had heard my name underwater, the thing turned its head precisely to meet the lens. It was not surprised. That is what undid me. It behaved like this exchange had already rehearsed itself in another house, with another bed, with another version of my face. It stared into the round black glass in the wall, and for a second, its shape blurred, as if it were moving both toward and away at once. Then there was the tiniest whine in the track, like tension in something giving, and the picture glitched. One frame lost, then stillness again, me curled, oblivious, mourning, waiting. I am not theatrical alone. I do not scream. I sat at the table and let my coffee get cold and watched the last 5 minutes again to file it into my head in a way my head could hold. The texture I had smelled at night, mulch, sweet rot, rose from the rug now in the daylight if I pressed my face close. A damp mark the size of a palm smeared near the bed where I knew my foot had not been. The binder on the table had a page on local Wi-Fi because people always ask. Service is limited. Cameras don't work up here, so we made our own. A joke maybe, or a confession with sugar on it. Under host contact, a landline number with parentheses more at home in an old phone book than an app. I called anyway. It rang and rang while the cabin learned me. I should have packed the car then. I didn't. I put on my boots because they sounded good on the floor and filmed myself saying that maybe ghosts are already content creators and we're just late to their platform. It was a bad joke. I cut it the second I heard my voice back, thin, like it had traveled through something viscous. At noon, I tried the door and it opened without metaphor. Outside, the forest felt like a body that had rolled over and shown a different side. I filmed trees, missed my face too close to the lens. I told myself I would leave at 3 after golden hour because content is currency and fear is a wasteful editor. At 2:40, the red light on my camera, a little living thing, flickered. The wall membranes, frame, bird, clock, darkened like eyes adjusting. The room cooled in a way that did not respect the thermostat. I heard a small sound by the bed, not a footstep. A rearrangement. The smell arrived like a memory you thought you had thrown away. I don't know how to frame what happened after without staging it for you. Maybe that's my punishment or my skill or both. The footage shows what the police saw later. My tripod still recording, my camera catching the bedroom at a good, honest angle. The bed where a body had been moments before, empty. A slow, soft compression forming in the quilt, as if something with knees were kneeling careful enough not to disturb the content. The wall lens opposite the bed, gloss shifting like breath on glass. And a voice, mine, not mine, soft behind the door, saying a name with an intonation that won't transcribe. If you frame by frame the last seconds before the cabin goes to a color half a stop too cool, you can see me bent to pick up the camera. My face passes the wall lens. For a single frame, my mouth smiles in the reflected membrane before I do. Then the red light steadies and the room becomes a room without a person in it at all. I leave gear everywhere. Ask any location who's had me. I would never leave the camera. But when the sheriff and the 2 plainclothes men came the next day, they found it alone on the table, still recording. The battery a miracle of endurance or an unwillingness to end. My case was open. The mercy lens lay in foam like an eye shut politely. My phone, they said later, pinged once from a ridge trail and then stopped as if it had found service only to be silenced for it. In the footage, after the red light fell steady again, the cabin is the cabin. Afternoon runs itself through the window. The fog breathes out and returns. At 4:02, the wall frame opposite the lens brightens a shade the way screens do when they wake at a touch. The membrane bulges a fraction and relaxes, like something on the other side checking to see whether the glass has learned softness yet. The last audio on the file is long room quiet, and a little sound that could be a branch on the siding, could be an animal settling in leaves, could be a camera adjusting to a face leaned close enough to fog it. If someone shows you that clip, you might pause on the moment the membrane almost becomes a mirror. You might tell yourself you see nothing. You might tell yourself that what you are seeing is compression artifact, that cameras make ghosts the way water makes reflections. You would not be wrong. You would also be safe. My last unsent story, still open on my phone when they looked, said, "We're not alone out here, LOL." I typed a lol like a pact with a version of me who was still pretending. The part of me that edits this in my head keeps asking, which angle would make you believe? The red dot steady? The impression in the quilt deepening in careful knees? The way the wall eyes don't reflect the room unless the room looks back? Or maybe it's the other angle. An empty frame where a person should be, and in the dark center something leaning forward, sincerely as if to understand. I don't believe in ghosts. I believe in coffee too late at night and lists on my phone pretending to be plans. I believe that a hairline crack in plaster is physics, that old pipes confess when the heat comes on, that houses make noises like people do, because of history, not haunting. When Kyle sent me the listing with the cutesy title, Harvest Hearth Cottage, I clicked mostly to laugh at the enamel mugs and the dried orange garlands looped over the mantel. Then I read the reviews. Magical, one said. We slept like babies and woke to the kitchen spotless. Thank you to the night elf. 5 stars. Another. Place was immaculate, almost eerily so. Woke up to our wine glasses washed and drying like little soldiers. Host said no cleaner came. Spooky lol. 5 stars, and then saw an elderly woman, faded gray dress, white hair in a bun, humming something that sounded churchy, tidy as a whisper. Thought I dreamed it, asked the host. They apologized for the confusion and said no cleaning services scheduled. Still 5 stars. I showed Kyle and he cringed. We should catch her, he said. He meant content. A video we could post with a caption like the internet loves. We stayed up to find the viral cottage cleaning lady. Spoiler, we found her. Halloween bait. 1 million views if we played it right. We'll be respectful, I said automatically. We won't exploit anyone, even if it's just an old neighbor with a key or somebody's mom, or a host with insomnia. He shrugged. Either way you film, I make the coffee. Science. Harvest Hearth was an hour outside the city, the kind of place where the sky opens up and the air has that sweet, dry scent of leaf rot and last apples. The cottage sat back from the road with a white fence that had given up on being straight. Pumpkins, unapologetically real, lined the steps. The porch boards flexed a little under our feet, each with its own voice. Inside, catalog cozy. Tall brick fireplace with a mantel crowded by brass candlesticks and a clock that didn't run. A woven rug soft enough to tempt bare feet. In the kitchen, copper pans hung on hooks clean enough to make you suspicious. A small framed sampler above the sink read, "If you open a door, close it. If you make a mess, clean it." The host, Lydia, left a handwritten note. "Welcome, Mara and Kyle. Tea in the canister. Coffee, too. Please no open flames in the fireplace. The heating is on a timer. If it gets drafty, there's an extra quilt in the chest. If anything feels off, text me. No cleaners scheduled, I promise." Elsie'd drawn a smiley face after promise and a little broom with blushing cheeks. We unpacked. Early October light came in at an angle that made everything look like it had nostalgia. I double-checked the windows, the doors, where the locks were. Kyle set up the tripod in the doorway to the kitchen so we could see the counters, the stove, the sink. He taped a cheap motion sensor to the baseboard that would buzz my phone when anything moved. I placed our 2 wine glasses by the sink, deliberately smeared with lipstick and a little stubborn red at the base. I left a breadcrumb trail of flour along the edge of the counter like snow that had fallen from someone's sleeve. Enticement, Kyle said, approving. We're baiting for tidiness, we kept it light. We cooked an easy pasta, left the pot soaking, set out 2 plates with red sauce dried like rust at the edges. We washed our hands and then palmed the faucet so a crescent of water freckles marked the stainless steel. On the stove, one burner's ring had a faint halo where something had boiled over and evaporated. Every mess was a carefully arranged note, "We see you. We respect you." A ridiculous thought. If this was a human, we were human too, making bait of our human laziness. We sat on the couch and watched a bad horror movie where the sound mix did most of the fear. The clock on the mantel didn't move, but I checked it anyway. At 2 a.m., the cottage cooled by a degree that mattered. The air shifted, richer with iron at the edge of it like you taste when you bite a lip. The radiator sighed like an elderly person standing, then fell silent. It felt like a theater right before the lights go down. At 2:50, the motion sensor vibrated once against my thigh and went back to sleep. Nothing on the camera. Kyle refreshed the app that made our phone a second monitor and frowned. Glitch. I made coffee thick enough to paint with. The steam smelled like childhood and saved me from the jitter. We talked about nothing and about everything. Our whispering made the house feel like it had shrunk around our breathing. At 3:07, the kitchen changed. Not light exactly. Texture. The air above the sink looked a shade more viscous. The motion sensor buzzed dumbly. On my phone, a pale blur thickened. On the actual tile, where the flour dust sat like a dare, the particles stirred. Slowly, like a breeze made of carefulness. A sound rose, not outside, not from the street or the dark yard or the old pipes, but from a throat not used to its own hum. A melody that leaned toward a hymn without quite arriving, minus words, minus breath. It was beautiful and wrong in the way a music box winding down is wrong. Something lovely pushed through teeth not meant to hold it. She was exactly as the reviews said, and not at all. Older, yes. Pale without being theatrical. Clothes that memory mislabels. A dress in a gray so tired it could be called any color by someone in love with naming. Sleeves to the wrist. An apron that remembered other hands tying it. She was transparent only where the mind needs her to be to accept her at all. Her edges thinned and thickened as if in a selective wind. She didn't ooze. She didn't float. She did the thing you'd do in your own kitchen in the middle of the night. Made herself a small shape of purpose, tucked her chin, and got on with it. She went first to the faucet. It wasn't that the handle moved, our eyes are craving a handle moving, but that the water, unwanted a minute before, lost its spots and settled, as if time were pressed fast forward in a fingertip. Her hand moved in the air, and where it passed, steel forgot smears. She lifted a cloth that was not physically present and lofted it over her shoulder in a gesture so human, it sent a current through me. Kyle's hand found mine without looking. His palm was cold, the sweat already cool. The camera saw her better than I did. It made a box around her that my eyes were reluctant to draw. In frame, she was more real, pixels but obedient. She went to the glasses. Her humming faltered on the threshold of our mess. I saw her mouth shape a small disapproving O and then relax, not an unkindness so much as habit. She lifted a sleeve, dipped her hand in an empty sink, and when she lifted it, something dripped from fingers that cast no shadow on the counter. The smear on the glass dissolving was a magic trick, performed slowly enough to be a rebuke. One glass, then the next, each rinsed, dried by the phased absent cloth, set on the rack in a row like little heads in a classroom. The flower line lifted in a drifting wave from left to right, revealing the countertop's faint scratches and the one burn mark in the laminate like a pale navel. The pot emptied of nothing and then lay clean in its own steam that did not fog. She worked around shadow. She stepped so as not to touch what the kitchen believed was solid. When she reached the stove, she paused, puzzled. Her mouth shaped a word I couldn't hear. She reached to something just inside the air over the ring and wiped. The halo surrendered, faded, became memory. It was only when she reached for the corner where the cabinet meets the wall, the place that gathers a line of grease fine as pencil, that she turned her face toward us. Not because she had noticed, because she felt a place being watched, and good workers prefer attention to be paid to results, not to bodies. Her eyes were the color water takes on in a metal bucket, gray not from age but from reflection. She looked at the camera with the mildness of a woman whose whole life has been making herself the kind of person people forget the second they sleep. And then she spoke in a voice that was more throat than air. "You missed a spot," she whispered. It wasn't accusation. It wasn't even correction. It was instruction pitched for a person standing beside you. It went through me the way cold goes through tile. My mouth tried to make a sound and found it had not been sworn in for this kind of work. On the monitor, the box around her blinked as if someone had detected a face. She lifted the nothing cloth, reached toward the lens itself, toward the circular glass eye we had left open to her kitchen, and polished. For a frame, the smear that had been invisible on our end, the tiny oil from my thumb when I'd twisted the focus ring, came into view at the exact moment it disappeared from video. The lens went clean. The picture sharpened as if embarrassed. Kyle laughed once, a hiccup that wanted to be a sob. His hand left mine, reached for the camera reflexively, and then stopped. The woman's head tilted a fraction, receptive to impulse. She hummed again, the melody continuing where she had left it, the way a person returns to a chorus without thinking. She set the drying rack straight even though it had not crooked. She smoothed the dish towel on the oven handle so the edges made a perfect line. "Thank you," I said, "because that's what you say when someone cleans after you." The words came out breathless, like I'd spoken into a cold bag. Her head turned slightly toward me, then away, toward me again, as if sound was not one line but many, and she was adjusting the dial. She did not seem pleased or displeased with my manners. She wiped the place where the counter lifts to become a little lip with the delicacy you use to clean a wound. "What are you humming?" Kyle asked, soft, like not to scare a deer. "What's that song?" The humming thinned. She lifted her fingers like a conductor finding the next entrance, then paused. When she spoke again, it was without moving her mouth in any convincing way, like the sound came out of a deeper version of her. "Mind where you put your hands," she whispered. "Mind the edges, the edges." The kitchen clock, stopped at 3:07, began to tick, one slow stroke, then another, a metronome from another century. The light over the sink flickered, then steadied. The radiator breathed again. The air thickened to ordinary. She turned, folded the knot cloth that had obediently continued being folded after every earth tidy has ever done it, and placed it where the towel was, as if returning something borrowed to something that didn't know it had been lent. Then she moved toward the doorway, the hum going soft, and became thinner, not in a horror movie way, but the way steam loses its argument near a window. "Wait," I said, because the human impulse to make contact is apparently stronger than the impulse to keep a barrier intact. "Who are you?" She did not answer. But the sampler above the sink, "If you open a door, close it," lifted a corner in a gesture that might have been the sigh of the house or a little breath passing by. It settled flat. She was gone, if gone is the word for something that returns as routine. We reviewed the footage. On the screen, everything we had seen looked more real than memory. The humming sat in the audio like a line that had always been there. Kyle scrubbed back and forth, freeze-framing at her glance to the lens, zooming into the place her fingers blurred. At one point, he lifted the camera off the tripod as if expecting residue to be warm. He touched the glass and made a new smudge. The motion sensor log was boring. 3:07. Movement. 3:16 movement. 21 movement. The notification, "You missed a spot," scrolled in our minds with a weight not justified by the lightness of the words. "We could post it," Kyle said. "And then, because he is not unkind, or we could not, we'll ask Lydia," I said. A reflex toward consent. At 4, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, no name, local area code. The message, "Please don't film her. She doesn't like it." It looked like a text a host might send to remind you about checkout. Then a second message, fast, "Check the threshold." We went to the doorway between the kitchen and the hall. Along the narrow strip where tile meets wood, a line we hadn't made had appeared, faint as pencil and dark as ash. It caught light like hair. When Kyle ran his thumb over it, it came away gray and sweet-smelling, like dust from pages shut too long. The line ran the length of the threshold, stopping where the radiator pipes went under the floor. A boundary. Edges. We wrote to Lydia. We told her we had seen the woman and that we wouldn't post. She wrote back quickly, "Thank you. Guests say she only shows up when people leave things dirty they don't mean to. I've tried to see her. I never have. My grandmother used to hum that song, Rock of Ages. Maybe it's nothing. Enjoy your stay. Please note checkout at 11, we didn't sleep. Dawn came slow and then all at once, washing the kitchen from slate to milk. We cleaned properly. The pot with real water, our wine glasses with soap, the counter with the ugly green sponge. We dried everything and set it to rights. We wiped the lens out of respect, not fear. We erased the files from the camera and the cloud. We emptied the trash and tied it with an absurdly neat knot. At 10:55, we stood on the porch with our bags and looked back at the kitchen window. The light over the sink flickered once, then held. The sampler was as flat as manners. The threshold line was faint where the morning had done its work. Quiet. Back in the city, the footage our minds had kept competed with the footage we had thrown away. That night, as I washed our own glasses, I heard humming from the apartment above. Thin through floorboards, a melody I tried to ignore. Kyle touched my elbow, gentle. "Edges," he said, as if that explained what we owed to a woman who never asked to be seen and still did the job. There are nights now when I wake at 3:07, with the useless certainty that something is tidying, the part of air in front of my face. The radiator breath draws in and holds. The sink settles itself. Once, sitting cross-legged on the kitchen floor at that hour, I lifted my hand over the tile and waited. Nothing touched me, but a circle appeared on the stainless steel of the basin, cleared as if someone had wiped one small spot in the middle of tarnish to show me what clean means. If this is a haunting, it is the kind that makes you put your keys in the same place every night so someone tired doesn't have to look for them. I still don't believe in ghosts. I believe in work done so long it becomes its own weather. I believe in the tenderness of exactness. I believe that if you open a door, you should close it, and if you make a mess, you should clean it. Because somewhere there is an old woman who has been doing both without thanks long enough to learn every threshold by heart. Sometimes, when I walk past the kitchen at night, I whisper to no one in particular, "You missed a spot," and the room goes still as if thinking, and then the air right above the counter gleams a fraction more, polished by nothing you can hold in your hand. I didn't need the place. I needed an excuse. There's a difference. My apartment had the thin walls and blue light of a life you keep meaning to replace. I'm 37, single by accident, designer by profession, the kind of person who can fuss for an hour about the spacing between two letters and then eat cereal over the sink like a raccoon. Halloween week came with a long weekend and the thought I kept putting off, do something, be somewhere else. The listing felt like a dare wrapped in a bargain. Harvest Lane Cottage, Halloween special. The price was half what it should have been for a whole house with a porch and a kitchen window framed in ivy. The photos had that washed-out, syrupy light people add to make old things look holy. A quilt faded to delicate, a mantle crowded with brass candlesticks, a round clock over the stove with Roman numerals and no dust on its face. The host's name was Tom. His bio was 3 words, local, helpful, honest, which is either a red flag or the real thing. After I booked, he messaged, "So glad you'll be with us for the holiday." The Halloween special is our way of keeping the place full this time of year.
Key and lockbox.
Code 0213. Check in anytime. Text if you need firewood. The code tickled my brain. I've worked in branding long enough to be suspicious when numbers repeat. I wrote it down anyway. The drive out was 3 hours of flat fields and trees that had turned themselves into a sepia postcard. The cottage sat on the edge of town where lawns give up and ditch grass takes over. The porch had a friendly sag. A ceramic pumpkin on the rail had a lid that didn't quite fit. Inside smelled like lemon oil dragged over old wood. The living room was a museum of comfort someone had staged just for me. 2 chairs that matched but didn't match the couch. A bookshelf with pitched spines. A quilt folded with such neatness it made me want to stand up straighter. The kitchen had a jar of tea bags and a note, "Welcome, Arun. 2 sugars in the jar if you take them. Signed T." The clock over the stove ticked with the deliberate cheer of something mechanical doing its job. I made tea, burned my tongue, laughed at myself, texted Tom a thank you and a joke about finally getting out of town before I turned to dust. He replied with a waving hand emoji and a photo of stacked firewood. "If you want a real Halloween," he wrote. "Night skies are ridiculous out here. Fair warning, wind finds every window." By 10, I was in bed with a book I pretended to read and kept rereading the same paragraph. The house settled around me with the soft complaint of an elderly person choosing a position. I drifted. Sometime later, I woke to a silence that wasn't empty. It was waiting. The kitchen clock had stopped. You can feel that even before you know it. The way your body knows when a refrigerator motor cuts out and suddenly the room is unveiled. I checked my phone, 2:13 a.m. The lock screen glared like an accusation. In the living room, the mantel clock had frozen at exactly the same time. Both hands joined like a prayer. The stove's digital numbers, the cheap blue kind, surrendered with an unlit face. The microwave read 2:13 in skeletal bars mid-blink, as if the electricity had interrupted it mid-sentence and left it stuck on the same word. I stood in the kitchen and listened to my heart make its own noise. Houses have so many throats, vents, radiators, mouths in the walls where wires slip. The wind pressed a palm against the window and let it slide. When I checked the back door, the deadbolt turned with the soft betrayal of old metal. I went back to bed and lay with my eyes open, the kind of awake that makes your own breath sound like someone else's. Morning made a liar out of night. The clocks were honest again, ticking as if nothing had happened. My phone said I'd texted a friend at 2:14 or LOL, every clock in here stopped at 2:13. That's a little on the nose, right? And then nothing after. I had no memory of writing it and recognized my own humor. I made eggs, ate them standing up, told myself electricity is a moody god in old houses. I hiked the town's loop trail, bought a coffee from a place with a chalkboard sign that promised cinnamon and delivered sincerity. I did not Google 2:13. I wanted my world to stay small enough to hold in a cup. Tom texted around dusk. "You good? Any drafts?" And I almost replied, "LOL, all the clocks died at 2:13 last night, huh?" But the part of me that lives under the part that jokes chose a more boring truth. All good. Thanks again. The second night, the wind arrived with the seriousness of a story that had grown tired of foreshadowing. It pressed itself through the trim and under the door with the persistence of a salesman. The house lost 2 degrees. I put on a sweater that smelled like lines from a dryer that had never met you. I let the oven heat the kitchen and pretended it was intentional. Somewhere after midnight, sleep found me, but clumsy. I don't usually remember dreams. That night, I woke with a mouthful of a taste I knew too well from every office fire drill, and a cigarette I bummed at 22. Smoke. Not the clean campfire kind, the kind that eats oxygen. In the dream, I was on the floor trying to get low because that's what all the PSAs say. The smoke was already low. It sat a hand on the back of my head and said gently and meant the opposite. When I jerked awake, I tasted metal. The bedroom air was clean and cold. My brain, a traitor, conjured phantom heat across my face. I lay and listened and smelled nothing but the ordinary ghosts of old wood. I went to the kitchen anyway. The oven light was off. The stovetop was cold. The plug-in air freshener by the door, a thing I hadn't noticed because it had disguised itself as innocence, blinked a thin green and exhaled a polite chemical apple. I slept sitting up. It's a posture that admits defeat and then calls it vigilance. The third day was a rehearsal for leaving. I folded clothes I'd barely worn, washed a plate I hadn't used, wrote in the guest book, "Thank you for the quiet," to make it all official. The clocks ticked with the self-satisfaction of appliances that think they have beat you. I walked into town to buy a bottle of something to take home and stood in front of a shelf too long. The shop's radio ran through a list of missing trick-or-treat hours and ended with a soft-voiced ad for a memorial event at the Green on Sunday. "We gather," the voice said, "to remember." The words did not stick, then did. I told myself I'd go to bed early and leave at first light. I turned the lock on the back door and tugged 3 times the way my father taught me when I was 9, and the only monsters were men. I left the lamp on in the living room because that is a superstition I can afford. When the clock stopped, I knew it before I knew it. The living room's tick-tick-tick wrote a line of text in the air and then erased itself at 2:13. The stove swallowed its numbers. The microwave made a small, strangled beep like a bird muffled in a fist and went blue with a permanent 2:13. I was on my feet before I was awake. The cottage air had changed temperature with the suddenness of a door opened in winter. I smelled it again, the old bitter sour that rides at the edge of fire, the sweetness of resin and the horrid aftertaste of glue letting go. It came from nowhere and everywhere. The gap under the bedroom door, the keyhole, the seam where the baseboard lifts from the wall. I said my own name out loud to make the room belong to me. Arun. It sounded like a person introducing himself at a meeting he didn't want to be at. I reached for my phone on the bedside table and knocked it onto the rug. When I bent to grab it, my hand blackened. Not a smudge, not dust. Soot, so fine it went under my nails, so greasy it left my thumb gray. The print started at the threshold, half-formed ovals like a child's heel and ball combined, the way shoes mimic feet. 4 in a line, perfectly spaced as if measured with a carpenter's pencil. They crossed the floor towards the bed with intention, reached the rug, smeared, and continued faintly on the cotton like something careful not to give itself away. The last print pressed itself into the wood right at the bed frame where my hand had just landed, my palm meeting black that announced itself between my fingers like a message. The sound came next. Not crackle, not flame, the indrawn breath of a room about to be filled with something it doesn't want. The pressure changed, ears in a plane. The cottage sighed from places cottages don't have lungs. My body wanted to lie down with my face against the boards. Some old animal part remembered a story about air staying low. I was outside myself, watching me crouch by the bed, doing something I had not chosen. "Okay," I said, though I wasn't sure who I was speaking to. "Okay, I'm leaving." The back door's deadbolt turned with a cheerless willingness. The knob was cool metal until it was hot. Not painful. Just warmer than a door should be in a house that has not been on fire for years. The wind jammed the door against its frame like a partner resisting a dance, then let go. I went down the porch steps without shoes, my breath a whitish animal in the porch light. The night did not roar or rush. It watched, the way fields watch when roads end in them. My phone's flashlight painted the gravel in short truths. My car, a black oblong, was a relief so profound it embarrassed me. I got in. My hand shook enough that the key wouldn't bite until the 3rd try. When the engine caught, it pulled me back into a world where cause and effect still dated, if not married. I didn't look at the house as I turned around. There is a rule there, and I did not test it. I drove with my high beams on like a coward, which is to say like a person who wants to survive. At the end of Harvest Lane, the road widened into the town green. A slice of grass swept hard enough to show care. On the far side, a low stone wall with a plaque stood in the kind of ground you put important things in. Candles crowded the base, tea lights in glass, thick devotional pillars half gone. A jar that had once held pickles now holding wax. The inscription was simple as a grocery list. In memory of the families of Harvest Lane who lost their lives, October 31st, 2022, 2:13 a.m. below, a brass clock face had been set into the stone, hands welded to forever. I pulled over without wanting to. Grief has its own gravity, and towns know how to fix a point to it. The candles moved in the draft of my car door opening. The air here smelled like cold and stale sugar, and a faint, stubborn ribbon of burned something that had knitted itself to the grass. The plaque caught my beam. The numbers jumped. 213, 2.13, 2.13. When Tom's message arrived, the sound made me flinch so hard the phone almost left my hand. You left quick. Everything okay? I typed with fingers that wanted to tremble and didn't let them. Clocks kept stopping at 2:13. Thought I smelled smoke. Found soot prints to my bed. I'm at the memorial. Did something happen to the house? There was a long minute in which the screen looked like a pond with no wind. Then, house burned in 2022. Gas leak. We rebuilt. Some folks say time refuses to cooperate out there certain nights. I keep the price low in October because it's right to let people decide for themselves. I'm sorry, Aaron, I should have told you. How do you rebuild so a place forgets ghosts? How do you advertise something grief has bought? The questions were too big for thumbs and a signal that kept pretending to die. I stared at the plaque until the numbers blurred, and the clock became a face with no features. I thought of the code for the lockbox, or 213, a joke, a warning, a ritual, a dare. I drove until the town dissolved into road and the road into obligation. When I reached my building at dawn, the elevator smelled like other people's mornings. My apartment held its usual unmade silence. I put my key in my bowl and it left a gray crescent that smeared when I wiped it with my thumb. My sink made its ordinary gurgle. My cat, borrowed for weekends from a neighbor, came to the doorway and chirped like a creature that believes in breakfast. At 2:13 p.m., the microwave flashed its usual 12 hours as if time can be mocked into obedience. I laughed at that. And then I didn't. That night, in the middle country of sleep, the clocks in my apartment did what they always do. Kept going. That's what I tell myself. At 2:13 a.m., my smoke alarm beeped once in the dry, apologetic voice of a battery thinking about dying, and the air moved as if a door had been opened in a house that was not mine. When I went to the kitchen, the floor was clean because I live like a person who recognizes his own mess. On the rug by my bed, where my heels touch the world first every morning, there was a smear the size of a child's hand, gray and black and sticky, already drying into the fabric like a decision. I scrubbed it with the edge of a towel until the towel gave up its whiteness. The stain lightened but did not leave. My phone lit all on its own. For a second, every clock face on the lock screen, world clock, the one I set to check on a friend in another time zone, the one for work, read 2:13 a.m. Then they slipped forward like fish released back into water and swam on. If I had taken a picture, I would have proof. I didn't take a picture. Tom texted one more time in the morning. If you leave a review, be honest. We give the discount for a reason. I haven't written it yet. I don't know how to fit what happened into 5 stars or 1 or any. If I do, it will be brief. The host was honest. The clocks were not. The house keeps its hour. And if I wake tonight at 2:13 for no reason, if the apartment air tilts warmer as if remembering, if I find a fingerprint on my white plate that isn't mine and smells faintly of coin and old cinnamon, I will tell myself the thing I told myself in the cottage. The sentence that opens and closes like a door. Okay. I'm leaving, but I haven't left, not really. Not yet. We went for the kind of weekend you promise a child and silently dread as an adult. Something wholesome, the word you use when you don't want to say cheap. I picked the place because the photos looked like a postcard you could live inside. Clapboard walls. A red door with a brass apple for a knocker. A kitchen full of sun and enamel mugs. The listing was called Harvest House. The price for the last weekend of October was suspiciously kind. I am not a superstitious person. I balance budgets for a small clinic. Numbers are my consolation. My husband, Rafi, is good at packing trunk Tetris and remembering snacks. Our daughter, Noor, is 7, and in that stage where everything is an experiment and every adult promise is a contract. When I told her there'd be a pond with ducks, it became a vow I owed the entire weekend to. The road out of the city turned to 2 lanes and then to 1. The air thinned into cold that felt clean. We pulled into a gravel drive shouldered by maples, the house square and polite against a row of old barns. A wreath of dried orange slices hung on the door, translucent as stained glass in the late light. The key was in a pottery bowl by the stoop, exactly where the host said it would be. A note taped above the latch read, in round, careful script, "Welcome. Please take off muddy shoes, enjoy the firewood, and before you go, please sign the guest book." Inside, the place smelled like lemon oil and something sweeter underneath, cinnamon or apples. A long, low cabinet held board games with frayed corners. In the living room, a brick fireplace wore a mantel dressed with brass candlesticks and a clock that preferred to be looked at rather than used. Noor ran the perimeter like a security check, announcing each discovery. "Look, ducks, mommy ducks." The pond beyond the kitchen window held 3 of them like punctuation marks in the moving water. We made it ours with small noises that felt enormous. The kettle chattering on the stove, the zipper of a suitcase breathing open, Rafi swearing softly at the stubborn flu. As the sun went down, the house learned our outlines. I texted the host, Miriam, according to the app, a thank you and a photo of Noor half swallowed by the quilt in the corner chair. She replied with 2 pumpkins and a heart. "If you need extra blankets, the cedar chest in the front hall. And please don't forget to sign the guest book before checkout. It's important to us." I saw it then on the front hall table. A book swaddled in old leather, brass corners, a fountain pen laid like a wand across its spine. A bowl of wrapped butterscotch sat beside it, slightly cloudy like candies kept just past their best. The book was open, the page creamy and inviting. The last entry read, "Thank you for a peaceful stay. B&R Halley, Oct. 23. Next to their names, a faint oval, as if someone had pressed a thumb there and left a blush of color the paper couldn't decide whether to keep. "Cute," I said to no one, and closed the cover with a finger curved under the edge because old things always seem to want a little help. We ate soup and fresh bread from the farm store 5 miles back. After Noor fell asleep, a choreography of stories, water, light, not that light. The house felt bigger than smaller, the way night plays tricks with scale. The trees outside touched the roof with thoughtful hands. Rafi and I sat on the couch pretending a fire is the same as conversation. "This place is nice," he said, and meant it. Like someone's grandmother cleaned it with a memory. "Don't say grandmother," I muttered. "You'll summon something." He grinned. "If I summon cookies, you'll thank me." We went to bed with the smugness of people who have done the thing they set out to do. At 2:11 a.m., the radiator exhaled a ribbon of heat that smelled faintly of coins and dust. At 2:12, a car passed on the road, headlights skating the ceiling like pale fish. At 2:13, I woke because the house held its breath. Not silence. The kind of pause where sound retreats a step and waits. The clock on the mantel had been ticking like a nervous animal. It stopped on a V of hands that pointed at a time the room refused to say out loud. In the kitchen, the oven's digital face, that cheap blue, went blank and then returned with 2:13, unblinking. The bedside alarm Rafi insists on bringing to. Every bed we sleep in quit its whining red numbers mid-change. The air went a degree cooler, and the parts of my body that noticed temperature, wrists, collarbones, took the message before my mind did. Noor slept through it, breath deep, lip open like a lowercase letter. I lay on my side and watched the hallway light we'd left on just in case lay a yellow ribbon across the floor. After a few minutes, the clocks behaved like clocks again. The house resumed, I nearly laughed. Off-gassing, wiring, old bones. In the morning, Noor found a duck feather in the yard and called it a treasure. Rafi made French toast with bread that didn't ask many questions. The day wore us like a well-fitting shirt. We walked around the pond and frightened the ducks with our existence. We collected a handful of red leaves that became a crown. I did not mention the clocks. At lunch, Noor asked if we could feed the ducks next year too, and I said, as we always say to children when time is a thing we pretend to control, we'll see. The guest book waited in the hall like a polite request. I told myself we would sign it that night after Noor went to sleep. We would write something properly grateful and tuck our names into the neighborhood of names. Halloween on the calendar always feels like a door. This one was a hinge. The day thinned and broke along its fold. At dusk, candles went on in windows down the road. The porch light clicked itself awake with a sound like a throat clearing. At 7, we turned away 2 older boys who knew they were too old but wanted the transaction anyway. Noor went to sleep with a glow-in-the-dark ghost sticker on her palm, convinced it would keep watch. I stood in the doorway listening to her breathe and took a photo I swear I did not send to anyone. At 10:30, Rafi poured a splash of something, yellow-brown that tastes like a good secret, and we sat on the front hall bench to sign the guest book like we were preparing to apologize to an audience. The leather was cool and smelled faintly of pencil shavings and rose. "Let's do it properly," he said, uncapping the pen. The nib had a shine like a decision. He wrote, with his best handwriting, and I felt something like ownership settle. Our names, the date, a line about the ducks. "Do we stamp it?" he asked, dry humor. "Looks like everyone leaves their mark." He touched the pale oval by the Halley's entry with a knuckle. The page showed where oil had been absorbed into fiber. Human grease, I told myself. The mind insists on narratives. Maybe it's a thing, I said, flipping back. It was a thing. Every page wore its print, some lighter, some almost invisible, some rust dark at the edges like the memory of a wound. Neat cursive from 1997, Irene and Walt, love the apples. Next to it, a thumbprint no larger than the last joint of my pinky. 2008, someone in block letters, best slept in years, thumbprint. 2019, a child's shaky, thank you for the pumpkins. Next to it, a small oval, as if someone had pressed a jelly sticky finger and time had drained the sugar away. Something in me started counting without permission. There wasn't a single exception. Even the earliest pages, the paper thick and slightly furred, showed the faintest smudge where a thumb had rested and not lifted entirely clean. Maybe they stamp it with dye, Rafi said, hopeful. The way he tells me the cough is allergies every winter. I turned to the first page, the calligraphed welcome. Welcome to Harvest House. Please sign your names and the date. And saw at the bottom edge a line of text I swear hadn't been there before. It looked printed, but the font carried a wobble human hands grant. Please complete your signature with a thumbprint. A courtesy to the house. Gross, I said, too loud in that small hall. We're not doing that. We're not giving our anything to a guest book. I heard the hiss of it, meanness dressed as humor. We'll leave a nice note, that's plenty. Agreed, Rafi said, quick, relieved. He capped the pen and set it carefully on the leather. At 2:13, the house reminded us of itself. Noor slept through the clocks, stopping again. This time, the cold went straight through my teeth. I sat up before the moment had fully finished. Somewhere in the house downstairs, a small sound happened. Not a creak, not a knock. The noise of a book closing gently. A breath followed, drawn in through a mouth that had learned patience. I felt it in my ears. I woke Rafi with a name, the way you wake someone you don't want to scare but also don't want to leave behind. We listened. The mantel clock remained a scissor of hands. The oven glowed its insolent 2:13. When we were sure our fear wasn't a song the house would sing back to us, we got out of bed and padded into the hall. The guest book lay open, though neither of us had left it that way. The pen had rolled to the edge and stopped, its clip snagged in leather like a hook. On the page we'd signed, below our names, a new line had appeared, written in a red "I don't own" and would not keep in my home. Checked out early. We'll see you next year. My first mind said, ink. My second mind said, blood. My third mind, the one that keeps the other two from wrecking the day, said prank, but the words had sunk into the paper, bled at the edges in a way that felt like tissue agreeing to be marked. The red wasn't wet. It shone as if just dried. I felt heat in my face. Not anger, not embarrassment. The remembered burn of having your finger pricked for a test. Little girls do this at school and call it a pact. The metallic ghost of it sat in my mouth. "We're leaving," I said. "Now." Raffi didn't argue, which is how I knew he had felt something reach into the night and put a hand around our names. We packed with the speed of people who have discovered a math problem beneath the floorboards. Jeans, toothbrush, crown of leaves. Nor blinked herself awake as we buckled her into her coat. "Is it morning?" she demanded, offended. "Almost," Raffi lied. We kept our eyes mostly forward. The pond in the yard wore a lid of untroubled dark. The trees didn't whisper anything we would have wanted to hear. The red door closed with a noise more careful than we deserved. When the tires found the road, I realized I'd been counting seconds in my head since the moment I saw the guest book. I made myself stop. We drove through fields that looked like thoughts scrubbed clean. Nor, outraged at the theft of sleep, cataloged all the wrongs and then dozed. The dashboard clock did not waver. At the gas station on the edge of town, where the cashier had nails painted like candy, I texted Miriam because that is what people do when they cannot make sense of something and want to give it to the person who owns the story. "Hi. We left early. Everything is fine. Just tired. Thank you for having us." The dots appeared, disappeared, returned the key to the bowl. She wrote, "Already did," I typed, and hated how eager the lie sounded. The key sat heavy in the pocket of my coat because leaving it on that stoop felt like leaving a tooth under a pillow, in a house that had learned to collect. We drove on. By the time we hit the highway, the three of us had settled into the kind of silence you wear like a sweater that doesn't fit. Nor slept hard. Raffi kept both hands at 10 and 2 like a photograph of safety. I kept my thumb in my palm to stop the urge to touch it to my tongue and taste metal. We were back in our building by dawn. Our apartment smelled like our lives. Laundry that should have been folded yesterday. Coffee that would grant us absolution. The lemony cleaner I always dilute too much out of thrift. We put Nor in her bed, kissed the air near her temple like we had done something virtuous. I set my coat on the chair and the key slid to the floor with a sound more significant than a key deserves. My phone lit. A message from Miriam. "You forgot to sign the guest book. Please sign next time. It means a lot to the house." Attached, a photograph. The front hall table. The book open to our page. Red words checked out early. "We'll see you next year." In a script I wouldn't mistake in a lineup. Above, a faint oval smudge beside our names, like a thumbprint that had been wiped and left a ghost of itself. I looked at my own thumb and saw along the pad a thin, dark crescent I had not earned in any way I could justify. A stain that did not come away with spit, that did not leave with soap, that stopped just short of where the whirl of my print begins. I wrote back a lie. "Of course. We'll sign next time. Thank you again." She sent a heart. And then after a minute, as if remembering another message, "Happy Halloween. We'll see you next year." Raffi found me in the hall with my hand under the tap, scrubbing like someone who has done something wrong and thinks they can wash it away. "It's nothing," he said, and his voice was the voice you use when you hope a story is almost over. "Paper, ink, people, people," I repeated, and the word meant everything and nothing. I dried my hands and the crescent remained, faint and stubborn. In the mirror, my face looked like it had learned a new habit overnight. We put the key in our drawer because throwing it away felt like a way of making it pay attention. We said nothing to Nor about next year. We made coffee. We made the bed. We acted like the most terrifying line in the English language isn't, "We'll see you next year." At 2:13 that afternoon, my phone calendar pinged with an appointment I hadn't made. The square was orange like the wreath. The title read, "Checkout." The location, Harvest House. The repeat rule, yearly. I deleted it. It returned. I write this because there is a book that wants a thumb and a name and a year, and when it decides those belong to you, it learns your handwriting for you. Maybe this is what it means for a house to have a memory, not just beams and plaster, but a ledger that keeps itself, an old-fashioned accounting where every guest is a line item and the totals always carry. It is November now. The clocks in our apartment were behaved last night. At 3:07, the radiator hiccuped. The kitchen smelled briefly of cinnamon where there was no cinnamon. On the hall table, beside our own little bowl for keys, a piece of paper lay folded like a menu. Inside, only a line written in thin red. Please sign the guest book before you go. We don't have a guest book, but if we did, there would be a place for a thumb.